Warning! This episode contains explicit language, really, really big fish, Nasawada's magic Gestapo, cat nudity, and childhood trauma. Also, there'll be spoilers for the entirety of Part 2 of Murtagh, the 5th novel in the World of Eragon by Christopher Paolini. Listen at your own risk.
Is this a podcast or is this just fantasy? We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. So join us if you want to nerd out. Time to start the podcast and see. Anyway, here's the show.
Hello, readers. I'm Dane Patterson, the host who also thinks that visiting the grave of the enemy I slew during the last war would be awkward.
And I'm Jackie Lanier, and is this a podcast or is this just fantasy? The podcast where the side quest subplots are always top tier. Just ask the Werecat who gives us our marching order.
We just do what the cat says.
Who doesn't?
If you'd like to join some of our wise mentors and esteemed chosen ones who support us on Patreon, there's a link in the show notes. If you can't or just don't want to, we totally understand. And just ask that you please rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
And as per usual, you can get our entire episode archive and buy our sweet merch at isthisjustfantasypod.com, and check out our socials for a mix of video clips from the show and also our best crack at Murtagh memes. We are on TikTok at isthisjustfantasypod and Instagram at justfantasypod. And before we dive into the side quest, Dane, I want to trawl through what we covered last time on our opening episode with Murtagh. Our emo boy is all grown up and more emo than ever, ruminating on his ruined reputation and separating from his soul-bonded dragon as the tides of fate draw him to the quaint fishing village of Siunan. Hot off the docks, we get the idea that Murtagh and Thorn have something very different going on than Eragon and Saphira did. These two have been through some shit, really, and they're like swimming against the current, trying to make a life for themselves post-war. Murtagh drifts into a cozy inn to meet with a business associate, and while he waits, he's treated to a deep dive into a provincial young girl's problem with a bully. They're rudely interrupted by Saros, a man you can tell is evil just by looking into his shark eyes. And after he reveals that he found the mysterious black stone Murtagh sent him in search of, he refuses to follow through with their business deal as agreed upon.
Classic bad guy.
I know. He instead decides he's just going to rob Murtagh.
Also classic bad guy.
Yes, this guy, I feel like he just cannot go with the flow, Dane. The situation escalates quickly into a full-blown fork and knife fight where we see Murtagh sweep over Saros and his goons like a tidal wave. But even with Saros dispatched, the hook is set when Murtagh discovers his Raven Skull amulet negates the name of names. Murtagh flees town with a parting lesson for Essie about staying to face your problems, and the irony of that is really lost on an ocean breeze for Murtagh.
Maybe he'll learn in time. Get it?
I told you I'm a sucker for the fork puns. When he reunites with Thorn, they decide they'll dredge up whatever truth is behind Saros' strange death on their own. They plan to cast a wide net, catching up with an old flame in Gilead for information, and as they chart their course through the skies, we see Murtagh lamenting his lack of a proper captain for his journey into the mysteries of magic, which has forced him to be much more abstract in his use of gramarye. And we left our intrepid, sad sailors last time as they arrived on the outskirts of Gilead, and I just have one question, Dane. Are you ready to go fishing for some answers?
Yeah. I'm so ready.
Okay, I lied. I have one more question.
Okay.
In the spirit of this section of the book, what would your overly convoluted side quest be? Like, what would you be doing?
Oh, wow. And this is and I am a fantasy character? Am I an Urkel who rides a dragon?
Yes, I was going to say,
okay.
we know who you are, Dane.
Oh, gosh. I'd have to stop at the DMV. To register my dragon. My enchanted Feldenost with the flaming antlers that I have.
And the bumper sticker. Yes. My other rides a dragon.
But I'm really only there to find out the name of the manager. Because the name of the manager backwards is the code.
Oh.
to the
Love
Jack in a
this.
Box
Ooh, love this.
lockbox that I can only get to if I become an employee.
Damn it.
Yes.
I feel like we are so galaxy brained. Do you have more? Sorry.
Well, then
Have
I
I
worked
cut
my way
you
up the
off?
chain. I had to be manager.
Oh,
Because I had to work my way up the chain, take 2 to 3 months of really grinding it out, really show my stripes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Which would be hard because I'm an Urgle in a non-Urgle
you're
environment.
being discriminated
I
against.
would be discriminated.
Yes.
And then, oh gosh, no, that's kind of all I had. I got to Jack in a Box and it kind of fell apart.
Well, I mean, Magical Jack in the Box really does put the mind in a loop, I think.
Wait, you Galaxy Bin?
Well,
What did
okay,
you?
no, I just thought when you were talking about codes and like, I was like, the only thing I could think of was like National Treasure.
Yes, there it
I
is.
want like a National Treasure style. Like in Alagasia, I definitely am buddied up with Jode.
Yes.
For this subplot side quest. And I feel like I want to be like discovering hidden runes in the backs of
Yes.
books, and I want to but I want them to lead me to like have to be a curator in a museum for months on
course.
end.
Yes.
To really sit there and gain their trust so that one night I can break into the exhibit. But like all hell breaks loose anyway, so I maybe could have just broken in to begin with. Yeah.
It's funny because I did not know this question was in this script either, and that was all I could come up with was the DMV.
The DMV and Jack in the Box. Yes,
So
and
funny.
Dane. Are you ready to get into Murtaghs? I will say better plotted than ours side quest.
I mean, we should really talk to Chris about a possible in the World of Eragon side stories.
Listen, I mean, would I pitch Alagasia National Treasure? Well, 100%.
100%.
Would I read that book?
With Joe.
1,000%.
Yeah, you could help Jode steal the next election from Nassau. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Dane,
I know.
election.
I'm so
She's a dictator. She doesn't get elected.
She's there by divine right. There's a mandate, Dane. Okay,
Duh.
sorry. Well, we need to get started. We're out of control.
Yes.
We're out of control.
Already off the rails. And this show, we warned you last time, it's long.
This is this part 2 is buckle up. I
Yes.
hope you have
There's
a
a
long drive ahead of you.
Yes, there's a lot in here. It was so fun to read, but I'm ready to get into it, summarize it. Kick us off, Dane.
All right, here's chapters 1 through 5.
Yes, we're doing a bit of a different
Yeah, we're trying stuff.
breakdown
yeah,
into
last-
little sections of part 2 instead of chapter by chapter.
Yeah,
So,
we don't need to do chapter by chapter. That's
Yep.
old us.
yes, get with it,
Yeah,
listeners.
we're like 2 lone wolves on the road.
Totally together in a
Yes.
room with another lone wolf on the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
All that's true, but we're also alone with the thoughts. Anyway, chapters 1 through 5. We are back as Thorn lands at a very dense hollow that he clearly doesn't like.
yeah.
They discuss their plan, which basically amounts to Murtagh going into Gilead and not getting caught. So top notch.
10 out of 10 as far as plans go.
Yeah. Thorn wants Murtagh to sleep with the chick they're looking for, Elena.
Yeah.
And this made me crack up. He tells Murtagh it might ease the fire in his belly.
Wild.
And Murtagh responds that he could get someone pregnant and he can't care for a baby right now. But Thorn thinks his boy just needs to get jiggy with it.
Dude, Murtagh is so responsible, and Thorn is not having
He
it.
is not. They couldn't be more different than Eragon and Saphira. Remember the whole Triada debacle?
Yes.
Saphira's like, I must love whoever you bed.
It's
Like, what?
like, whoa.
Okay.
That's a bit much.
Thorn's like, get it on, dude.
Feels right. Yeah.
It does. Murtagh spots a new side road on the way into the city with lots of visitors heading that direction. Turns out Oramus and Glader are buried there under a sprawling oak.
Okay.
Now, I must remind you all of our very important elven friend, Weirden, whose name I for sure didn't have to look up for this whole segment.
You had to look up Weirden?
I mean, I only learned of his name in one chapter, and then he died in that chapter. So
and yet we talked about him
for
on the
so
podcast.
Yeah.
Long enough. Weirden lived on in our minds and hearts for
Not
the
me.
rest of that book.
The moment he died, I was like, nope, he's gone. Well,
Justice for Weirden.
he was buried like this.
Oh. I was like, why are you is Weirden here
You're
in
like,
this
is
grave?
that weird? Bringing you to Weirden? No.
No.
Weirden was also buried like this. This is the whole, like, elven
Grow a tree
grow
over
a
it.
tree over
Got
it
it.
ceremony.
Got it.
Oramus and Glader's bodies got the same treatment here. Seeing the monument does make Murtagh feel bad, and he apologizes to the ancient rider and dragon under his breath as he passes.
Yeah.
It's all very sad, but never fear. The guilt doesn't last long, as Murtagh naturally leads his emotions to his resentments of Eragon and Saphira and their tutelage under Oramus and Glader. And I get it. I would be resentful too here, I think. Yeah.
It makes sense.
And then Thorn goes into a line of thinking I don't really like for our emo boys.
Okay.
Essentially, he thinks that they've suffered more than anyone, and like they've gone and survived through things that other people haven't survived.
Yeah.
Which is the pain Olympics. They're comparing themselves to other people. And
kind of some real race to the bottom shit.
Yeah, and this leads to comparing your lived experiences to others, which is completely subjective, right?
Yeah.
Even if there is a kernel of truth for these guys here, you should empathize with other people instead of using other people's lack of pain as a pump-up thought, which I think is a dangerous road to toe.
Yeah.
This is just justification for bad behavior and choices. Healthy coping would be accepting, taking responsibility, being better through those actions. It's fine to feel resentment, but using it as a long-term solution is probably not great. Murtagh almost comes to this separate from Thorn in his thinking about how their emotional and mental scars of the past are like real damage to the body and permanently debilitating. And I also don't think it's a healthy coping mechanism to see yourself as like permanently maimed. So they're both taking
on like
choices.
kind of separate downward spirals here.
Yeah, I get it. It makes sense. It's rational. It's not the greatest line to go
Yes,
down.
it worries me, I guess, in terms of the story. It's like, well, where do you go from here? With that mindset, given what's happened to you, we've already seen you make a questionable choice that's put you in this situation to begin with.
Exactly.
So like, uh-oh.
Yeah, well, no time to think about that.
Amazing.
Even from the outside, Gilead has its scars as well.
Yeah.
Scars of war everywhere. Budwood, there's arrows still on walls, and Murtagh can't help but empathize with the Imperial soldiers when he thinks about the war. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it was. You kind of forget about like him being a part of an army in that way.
Yeah, and then he grew up in the Empire and like didn't want to join the Varden in the first book because of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, also got to shout out Lord Barst. He led the defense here, remember? And he also killed the whole family when people rebelled. Remember,
That's
he burned them
right.
on. I think he lit them all on fire. So this place had a lot happening back in the war.
Yeah.
But Gilead, much like Cianon, is rugged and earthy, but this place is lively and full of people, and it's being expanded on, and there's elves and dwarfs settling here in really great numbers. There's even people being carried around on chairs by porters, which was a surprise to me.
Yeah.
This place is in its post-war boom era.
That's just what you want.
Yeah.
Post-war economy is cranking.
I bet they even have a new avocado bread cafe, or maybe like a Dwarven coffee house where the beans are roasted on site. And the
Gilead had been gentrified?
Yes. And the Dwarven hipsters like give you a cup with latte art, like a dwarf bun with like runic tattoos.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
As Murtagh is looking around, we get more of his knowledge of court and the habits of the rich and powerful,
Okay.
which is a very different like worldview than we get with Eragon inside his head. He even goes on a tangent a bit about loving dance and knowing all the complicated steps, and I love him more and more. I use a dance too, my emo bro.
Yes. We are the same, you and I.
When I look in the mirror, I see Murtagh. Murtagh buys a bird and bribes a page to take it to his girl Elena. That's how you get laid in this world. Buy a girl a bird.
He's not trying to get laid. This wasn't Thorn's idea.
Remember, it's a loop. Thorn's feelings are in his feelings. Anyway, he's looking at his remaining money and has this thought that he could be a mercenary or a doctor to get some cash if he needs it.
Oh, yeah.
And it got me thinking, is he a doctor? Like, is he trained for that? Because we know Eragon is a board-certified neonatal surgeon and Arya is an OBGYN. So it's not
Right.
crazy that... Is Murtagh a pediatrician?
I mean, he does like kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think about that. I mean, we see the healer from Carbajal, which
Right.
obviously is like a very backwoods kind of herbs and salves vibe.
Yeah.
And then you think like, elsewhere in the Empire, any magic users are probably your doctors.
It's probably
right?
a doctor? But, like,
Yeah.
does he know any other... Is it would just be magic, I guess?
It would have to be, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a tangent, but I just was curious. At some point during all of this, he spots Lyrith, a noble who bullied him when they were kids.
Yeah, fuck that
so,
guy.
fuck this guy. Lyrith was connected.
Yeah.
He's the oldest son of Lord Thaven, the commander of the Navy under Gal.
Okay.
So about as powerful as you get in authoritarian government, you kind of want to be connected to the military.
Okay.
So pretty powerful dude. We
Makes
also know that his dad was a badass because the Navy was nasty. Remember all the boats that went missing with Varden supplies?
Oh, yeah.
This guy's dad must have been involved with that, and that was one area Gal always won, it seemed. Also, remember Jode. Remember Helen.
Oh, yeah. They had their fortunes ruined by this dude.
Yeah.
Only you would make that leap.
Yeah. All Lyra's fault.
I just read it and I was like, whatever, he's a noble.
Nope. It's a huge deal.
Naval noble.
He's a naval noble. He's like a
and
big
he did
deal.
our boy wrong.
He did Jode wrong.
Yeah.
But Helen's better for it. Anyway.
So true.
She's got a lot of products on the market, I hear. But Murtagh's thinking his message must have been intercepted because soldiers are gathering with a blonde man in purple wearing the symbol of Duvrengar at their head. Murtagh gives us some information on Duvrengar, and it's not great.
It's not what you want.
Yeah, we learned that Nasawada went through with her plan. So now Duvrengar are a guild of magicians and magic users in the Empire and Serta that every human who can cast magic is required to join.
Uh-oh.
And if they choose not to, because fuck the man, I say, they must submit to drugs and or spells that prohibit them from using magic without permission.
Not great.
Not-
Classic government gives you drugs situation.
It's never a good
It's
sign.
not what you want. Drugs might be fun, but not when they're
forced on you by the
forced
man.
on you by the government.
Yeah. Murtagh, both a fugitive and unregistered magician, clearly wants no part of that, so he runs the hell out of there.
Yeah.
He is
Unregistered.
Yeah, right. He's immediately ambushed by a large man with a cudgel and a leather tank top. So a leather daddy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The leather tank top really stuck out for me, too. I'm
Yes.
glad we pick up on the same.
We are galaxy brain.
Yeah.
I was like, leather tank top?
What do you mean?
What?
Sleeveless, okay.
Okay, tell me more. So he wants to take Murtagh to a werecat named Carabel.
Totally normal, yeah.
As you do.
Yeah.
Murtagh goes with it because the soldiers and magicians are heading their way.
Yeah.
They head into a safe house with a built-in tunnel. It's
Yes.
fucking fun.
Yeah.
Mysteries abound. Murtagh follows the tank-topped Hulk down the passageway, which lets out in this fortress storeroom.
Yes, yeah. So they do make it like straight into the castle, which like Murtagh was loitering outside of anyway. So
Yeah.
maybe we're getting places.
Maybe we're moving on up.
Yeah.
Start at the bottom, right? They make their way to a chamber where Werecat is sitting on a desk, and it turns out she's the first Werecat Murtagh has met.
Yeah.
And she's kicking things off with a bang for a race, having eaten the pretty little bird Murtagh just bought for
God.
his intel booty call.
No.
Yeah, she drops the bomb.
Oh, yeah, isn't the cage just like sitting on her
like,
desk with feathers
with
in it?
feathers everywhere, and she's just like licking her. I think she's licking her like fingers.
Yeah,
or
that
something.
gave me big like cartoon vibes.
Yes. Anyway, she drops the bomb that she knows exactly who Murtagh is and who he's looking for Elena to get that sweet intel. And she cuts right to the chase, asking him what the fuck's up. And Paolini is clearly making the point that Werecats know everything that's going on kind of in the kingdom.
Yes, I think so.
Anyway, Carabel offers to help Murtagh get the information he needs in exchange for his promise to complete a teeny tiny side quest.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, so Murtagh responds by plopping Saros' amulet and the evil-smelling stone on the desk.
Yes. I thought that was like quite a big escalation. I was like, okay, bro.
He's like, I'll raise you.
Calm down a little bit.
Have you seen this? Carol loses it immediately and demands to know
Yes.
why Murtagh is in possession of these cursed artifacts. She doesn't like them.
No.
So he tells her the sanitized for studio audience version of the fork short story. And,
Slightly less murder? Or- yeah.
And when he's done, Carabel just tells him what literally everyone who hears about this fuckery is thinking. He's asking questions he doesn't want to know the answers to.
Yes. I did think it was interesting too, like the way you said she loses it immediately.
Yeah.
I know you've made the point before that like werecats and dragons have a lot of similarities, and it was the exact same reaction Thorn had to seeing that rock,
He was
right?
like, ugh, there's something wrong with
Yeah,
this.
it's like this like hackles up kind of.
She had that same, like, this is evil.
Yes.
Yeah. It ends up that Carabel knows exactly where Michelle is. Convenient.
Amazing.
But Murtagh will have to complete the most D&D plotline I think I may have ever read in a non-D&D novel.
Yeah.
Here's the gist. Several Werecat children... Let's set the scene. 1950s music, detective music comes on. Several Werecat children have gone missing in the last 6 months. Only one has been found.
Oh.
Where are they? Anyway, another one named Silna was taken 3 days ago, and Carabel assures Murtagh that he's the only one who has a shot at freeing her.
Okay.
The Werecat pinpoints Silna as far as a magically sealed door under the city guard's barracks.
Ooh, not great.
Yeah, Liam Neeson, Murtagh, is instantly riled up by these crimes against children.
Yes.
And you could definitely say he has a particular set of skills.
Whoa, wait, I thought it was 1950s
Sorry.
detective music.
And you can say, I have a particular set of skills.
Werecat taken in a 1950s noir.
Yeah, well, like it's like they're in a storeroom. There's just one light hanging down.
Yes.
It's like
Perfect.
Murtagh like voiceover. I was alone in a room with the Werecat, the first one I'd ever met. Anyway, okay, sorry, we're going on a tangent here. Murtagh Avi is moved by the prospect of innocent like children suffering.
Yes, he hates that.
Yeah, he's familiar with that himself, and he has flashbacks to the 10 days he spent casually imprisoned and then beaten for sneaking out of Eragon.
That's right. It's just like a casual teen rebellion. This wasn't when he tried to leave for good.
Oh, no. This is like as a younger
he
kid.
like snuck out for a night or something.
Yeah.
And he was in prison for 10 days. Ugh.
So he tells her he's in, and the Werecat responds by giving him the wildest to-do list I think I've ever heard. Murtagh will only be able to access the secret door by joining the city guard. And he'll only be able to join with Captain Waren's elite company if he can kill an eldritch fish whore that's been terrorizing the locals. And he'll only be able to catch the giant fish monster by luring it with one of Glader's scales. Scavenged from the ancient dragon's grave. It's a pretty simple point A to point B plot.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong? There's really no other way around that.
I mean, this is clearly the only way you could do it.
Yeah.
So, just a classic, desecrating the tomb of the dragon you murdered to kill the fairy tale fish to get a job with the local special forces to get the secret door without spooking whoever is behind these kitten napping situations. It's a classic situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think they could make this into a 1950s noir because I think it already is out there. I think it already exists.
This is definitely Maltese Falcon. Anyway, I feel like he could just kill his way in, right? If we're being honest.
He definitely could.
Yeah.
He could, but should he, Dane?
I mean, I bet it would be faster than the fish,
For
to be
sure.
honest. When Murtagh updates Thorne about all this, he's totally on board for the side quest, which surprised me.
Yeah.
Even the dead, like, dragon scale part, and he said, quote, not exactly quote, but it was kind of like this. It's not my fucking scale. You know what I mean?
No, I think that's what Chris wrote in the book.
Yeah, that's in there.
I don't care. It's not mine.
He goes on to say that dragons wouldn't care what happens when their bodies die.
Oh.
Which is,
That makes sense, I think. The way they're just like, whatever, we are
Yeah.
the embodiment of everything good. Like, whatever, we don't care when we die.
may not be dead.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's pretty funny to me. Also, I feel like Thorne is just way more chill than Saphira.
Yeah.
I feel like he likes to go with the flow. Is this just me?
No, I
Okay.
think he definitely, the way he signs right on board for this, he's like, yeah, do what you got to do, bud.
Cool. That made perfect sense to me, that
Yeah.
laundry list of things we
I
have
like
to do.
fishing.
But we're in it now. So Murtagh heads to the burial monument. And as he walks through this area, looking at the palacards the elves have put up to commemorate this place,
Oh, yeah.
he feels super uncomfortable. And I don't blame him.
Yeah.
They tell the story of the riders, the story of the empire that Gal made with the Forsworn, and the story of Ormus and Glader, who were killed by the betrayer, Murtagh.
Oh, yeah, that's what it calls him, huh?
Yep. It sums up Murtagh's plight as a historical villain.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot for our emo guy, and frankly, very emo.
It's very emo up here, yeah.
Yeah. There are many people crying, sharing stories of lost loved ones, and talking about death. So, yeah, he's about to steal from this place while all these people mourn.
Yeah.
But no time to really reflect because Daddy's got to steal some scales
Oh, no.
of the dragon he helped murder. Oh, my God. While Murtagh is figuring out how best to do a grave robbery, a nice blacksmith comes to comfort him because he must look crazy and just sad standing there and trying to steal in silence.
Yeah, he's
you
like
know?
really focused, looking around, and the guy's like, wow, I'll go comfort that man who's clearly going through something.
Also, this man's name is not written down in our notes, but its name is Mallet.
That's right.
I can't remember Weirden's name, but Mallet.
Mallet. He lives rent
He
free.
will live rent free.
He was so nice.
He was. Mallet shares a bit about the people there, mourning their dead families they
Yeah.
lost in the war, and the weird visitors that want to worship the dragons.
Yeah.
Which
odd mix up here.
a little mix. I really liked this dude and thought his interaction with Murtagh was nice, but Murtagh doesn't really know how to handle the genuine human kindness. Yeah. So Mallet finally takes the hint and leaves him alone.
Yeah, it was a little like, I think that's why we both kind of liked this guy and
Yeah.
liked this interaction, because it's clear Murtagh's very uncomfortable when people are just trying to like be kind to him and connect with him.
Yeah. He also has, well, we're not going to go into it, but he has a story about his son and how he was in the war, and that was all very
Yeah.
nice, and it's good world building there.
Yes.
I liked that. Murtagh finally strikes gold. See what I did there, Jax? Anyway, he uses a
Oh my
branching
God.
if spell with the water to bring the scale painstakingly to the surface,
Okay.
even around a huge stone.
Wow.
It couldn't be this easy, could it? No.
Of course not. Why?
As soon as Murtagh picks up the scale, he comes under a crippling mental attack that he
That's
decides
right.
could only be elves using the scale like a scrying mirror alarm. And then an elf is for sure on his way to stop him where
Shit.
he's at this, like, gravesite.
Yeah.
He gets to heading out of there at full speed and running and still battling in his mind. And Murtagh does something fucking rad. He stabs himself and pushes the elf that's like in his head out.
Yes,
and it
the
works.
pain like jars both of them so much. He's able to like get that
Fully
other
out.
Consciousness gone.
So good.
Yeah.
He does drop the scale and is then called a grave robber by Mallet, which is not great.
Yeah.
Murtagh doesn't take long to like reflect on this and just bolts.
Well, he's just like, I mean, true, but
Yes,
damn it.
but come on. And then he's got a fish to kill. He's got
So
things to
true.
do. Murtagh makes it back to the hideout with Thorn, and they really get in their feelings over the scale. First, they reflect on just the sheer might of Glader, which he was pretty cool. And then they trauma bound over the horrible moment when Gal tried to regrow Thorn's tail.
Oh, yeah. This was kind of an interesting little tidbit because you don't find anything out about it, obviously, in the original series, but it's like, ugh, that sounded
Painful.
gross.
Yeah, it sounded horrible. But we can't get caught up in sad memories, Jax.
Well, good for once with Murtagh.
Yeah, we've got a Werecat to save.
Yes.
Murtagh and Thorn take to the skies over Lake Eisenstar, using some stump time skills to search for a gigantic fish.
It did seem at first like that should be a pretty easy find, but
totally agree.
it wasn't.
But it's more complicated than we think. The lake is too big for them to be taking aimless stabs. So Murtagh decides to head into Gilead to ask some fishermen about this fish.
Oh, that's a smart idea.
Yeah, and our poor clean freak and possible classist has to endure some truly horrendous torture to avoid notice in the city. He has to make himself look like a dirty commoner by spearing some mud on his face. And I love this.
Truly his nightmare.
Yeah, I love this because I think it has two potential reads.
Yeah.
Both good, in my opinion. Either Murtagh is perceptive and skilled at the art of disguise, or he really is an elitist germaphobe through and through with a comically exaggerated view of the peasantry. And in either case, this is apparently an old trick in his arsenal because he did the same thing when he stuck into Gilead to rescue Eragon.
That's so funny.
It's so funny. And where do we find fishermen in fantasy novels, Jax?
Oh, Dayton. Seedy Dockside Pubs.
Seedy Dockside Pubs. The location, some street teens point Murtagh to, is the Rusty Anchor.
Okay.
Murtagh buys around to get some old fishermen to tell the story of Muckmaw, and a dazzle of colorful dockworker lingo.
Yes.
We get the deets.
The dialect here was like really top notch. Also, I feel like worth pointing out so far in this book, I feel like Christopher Paolini is 2 for 2 on solid fantasy inn names.
Oh,
Folsom
he's crushing
Feast,
it.
Great. Rusty Anchor,
Fantastic.
So good.
Yeah. Also, was it a British accent? Was it a Boston accent that everybody was?
Well, that was See You Not. That was a Folsom Feast. Here it's like
New Jersey?
yes, let's go with New
Perfect.
Jersey.
All New Jersey.
Like Appalachian.
Appalachia. Okay, we're all over the map. The beast is a 60-year-old gargantuan, bottom-feeding sturgeon the size of an entire boat that actively terrorizes Gilead's fisherfolk.
Wild.
Long ago, 3 local kids were shore fishing and decided to torture their catch by watching the fish suffocate to death.
Ew.
It seems Durza happened upon them, and surprisingly, they didn't all just share an evil recognized game head nod and go their separate ways. If only. Durza decided to join in this fish torture, and when the final fish was left standing, Durza enchanted the sturgeon, and the kids say they felt the words in their bones.
Interesting.
Suspect for sure. Durza left them with the promise that the fish would terrorize the boys for the rest of their lives.
Fuck.
And ever since then, anyone trying to catch or kill Muckmaw has watched the fish repel hooks, spears, and arrows.
Uh-oh.
So it sounds like Durza warded Muckmaw for sure.
Yes.
And Murtagh is not thrilled to hear this.
Yeah.
Because he knows there's some magical fuckery at play.
I think he even thinks too deeper than that. Well, not deeper than that, but it's adjacent to that is like, fuck Carabelle, dude. She did not pitch this to me in like quite the right way.
He's like, just kill the fish, all right?
It'll be real easy.
His name's Muckmaw. It'll be easy.
Yeah, listen, so goofy, Muckmaw.
Doesn't he sound like a goof?
Yeah,
It'll be fun.
And then you hear about the Muckmaw, and you're like, oh, that is horrifying.
Anyway, on his way out, Murtagh's spidey senses save him from a mugging,
Oh.
but they can't save him from losing his shit on 2 street teens' dad.
Oh, God.
And spreading some trauma of his own.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, Murtagh's tortured soul confirmed.
Yeah.
He has second thoughts about how bad he beat the dude trying to mug him, but there's no time to dwell on the moral fallout of becoming a violent man in a violent world because Thorn radio's over and the chapter ends as the dragon takes off for Muckmaws Cove
Yeah.
before Murtagh can start talking about their plan. But I'm with Thorn. Let's get this evil magic fish.
Yes. I did like Murtagh was like, okay, I'm going to have to like regroup with Thorn. And Thorn's like, we're going fishing. Let's
go.
roll.
Well, also, I think he's like, your thoughts right now are very dark.
This is getting sad, bud. And I think maybe he must feel that Murtagh's like been attacked.
Yes.
So he's like, we got to go.
Less concerned about that. Like he's like, guys, the fish, come on.
Well, that does take us to chapters 5 through 8, and I am ready to activate side quest phase 2. Thorn dangles Glader's scale from a line on his toenail while Murtagh waits with his extra beefy bow, stump timing around to find Muckmaws' consciousness in the water. It's very fun. I like the imagery of that scene, but it's not going well, unfortunately. No. And just as they're about to give up, Dane, they spot a fish the size of a cave bear rippling through the water.
Okay, hold on. I had to look this up. So I looked up the Ur's hat in Eragon's Guide to Alagasia, which is a cave bear.
I was like, huh?
Yeah, it's one of the Feldenas things.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
and it says that they are as large as a house.
What?
And I looked up the average size of a medieval house, too. According to encyclopedia.com, the average is 49 to 75 feet long by 13 and 20 feet wide.
What?
Which seems too big,
That's
to be
too
honest.
big for a fish.
So then I looked up what Urzhad cave bears were based on, because I thought it was the extinct cave bears in our real world that were about 7 feet tall and weighed no more than 2,200 pounds. This is further confusing because you remember the fisherman said, quote, "You see, Orith, the blasted fish, is near as long as one of our sailboats. A good 10 paces from tip to butt, I'd reckon, and about 3 paces across the beam." So that's 25 feet long, look that up, and about 7.5 feet wide. And Murtagh says that it's got to be bigger than even that. So it's pretty fucking big. With all of that said, I have no idea how big this fish is. It could be anywhere from 25 feet long to 75 feet long and weigh somewhere between 2,200 pounds or 4 to 5 times that. Anyway, you may continue. It is a big fish.
What is wrong with you?
I spent about an hour on that. I was just walking around. Well, then I was like, does someone know how big it is? Did someone figure this out? And then I couldn't find anybody who knew how big it was. And then I was like, I have a book that says that. And then I was reading the Guide to Alagasia. And then I saw the Urgle part of the Guide to Alagasia. I was like, oh, that's a cool picture. And then I was reading that. And I just went down. It was a mess. I had my own side quest.
Yes, you did. You... Yet again, fate strikes. You are just like Murtagh.
You said it this time.
I did, yeah. I just read a fantasy book and I'm like, it is a big fish.
It's big.
I don't know. Really big.
It's
Too big. Yeah.
No, but
fantastically big, some might say. Anyway, Murtagh tries to kill this big fish with magic. He tries to kill it with arrows. He tries to kill it with brute force, angst, you name it, everything in his arsenal. But everything bounces off this giant motherfucker's wards. And these wards themselves seem to really be something else. When Murtagh tries to remove them with the name of names, they regenerate. And all the while, this creepy ass fish is like swimming around toying with them, like messing with them, Jaws style. It all comes to a head when the fish tackles Murtagh's ass into the lake. It's man versus fish up in this bitch. Murtagh is whipped around the bottom of the lake by what I have to imagine is Muckmaws' like gummy, bony mouth, like scrambling to find something on the lake bed that will penetrate these super wards, and it ends up being a human being's thigh bone.
Yuck.
Super gross. It's that scene that like he sees the muck streaming from the fish's maw, and I'm just like, it sounded so goofy when she said it, and now that we're here watching the muck maw,
it's mucky.
I have nightmares.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yes, so the fun pop out here in this section is that the lake bed that Murtagh's like drowning in basically is littered with the corpses of the Imperial soldiers that the elves slaughtered at the Battle of Gilead. They backed them into the lake and drowned them. So add this grotesque little scene onto Murtagh's PTSD docket because we really see him grapple with the guilt of leading all these piles of bones into this battle and deserting them after killing Oramus, his target. So we get a little backstory on like Murtagh just got out of there and left all the human soldiers to die.
Which makes sense because even though he killed Oramus and Glader with all the elves, I mean, Gal would have just been like, leave. You got to leave.
Yeah. Gal's not risking them for anything.
Yeah. Wild.
Sad though, dude.
Very sad.
But unfortunately, we'll have to make time for this trauma later because right now, Murtagh has managed to get this fish belly up and himself back up to the surface. And so Thorn pulls his boy to safety. But this is another spot where their bond is feeling so different than Eragon and Saphira's to me. I really got the vibe that Thorn, like swooping in and saying he would have saved Murtagh at any cost, had the slightest tinge of like, is Thorn trying to convince Murtagh of that or himself? Like he's so frantic about it. And then when they make it to shore, Murtagh is the one who has to soothe Thorn's guilt over not being fast enough to save him from Muckmaw in the first place. It just seems so fraught. Like everywhere you turn, they're like having to like tiptoe around and like figure out all these layered traumas, you know?
There definitely is Thorn definitely has there's something going on that I don't know if we necessarily have enough information yet.
No, I mean, I just think
right? Like,
I think I get the read here that he feels like he's not up to the task of protecting Murtagh because there are instances where they've each failed to protect each other. And I just think that's something they carry with them deep, you know?
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Well, we do have a fish to butcher. And I think you'll like this, actually, because I think I remember as they're butchering, Murtagh like explicitly thinks that Muckmaw's head is as wide as Murtagh is tall. So that should be like 6 foot, 6'2". There you go. You like that?
Yeah.
Does that help?
We have some bait. How long is the fish?
There's no way to know. I did think, though, it was a top tier emo move for Murtagh to cut Glader's scale out of the fish's stomach to store in his saddlebag. It's like, dude, nothing better than carrying a relic of your shame everywhere you go. That'll be a fun bonus on top of everything else you have going on.
Yeah, seriously.
But that leaves us to head off to this job interview. Do you think it's Murtagh's first job interview? Like,
yes,
do you think his creepy...
100%.
Well, do you think... I guess I was wondering if the creepy 18th birthday party Gal threw him counts when Gal was like, hey, go do a genocide. Was that like a job interview? Or?
I don't. I think that was coercion. I think he was being mind fucked with.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I guess he still does know, though, even if he's never been interviewed before. He knows enough to not show up covered in fish guts. So our tidy boy once again gets to cleaning.
Yeah, and he cleaned himself twice.
Yes.
And he's just scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing.
Yes, I mean, I did get the vibe. I was like, do you think he's into like K-beauty? Those like double cleanse, 10-step skincare routine?
Oh, Jacqui, he for sure has a 3-step skincare routine. Like, I bet he lotions himself up.
Yeah.
He's a dandy, right? So then once he's lotioned, he sprays some cologne into the lotion. And, it's probably something that smells of like pine and whiskey.
Yes, classic hipster coffee shop
Just
man.
Touch of citrus. Oh,
Yes.
no. Oh, my God. He's a red light guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's a red light and sauna guy. That's what he is.
Well, he can't be looking like he's aging, Dane.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, actually, he doesn't because he's a dragon rider.
So he's getting better.
Yes.
We didn't hear about this at all, this cleaning with Eragon. And
No,
it makes
that's
me
true.
think, is this a bit over the top? I mean, we should call it Bear Grylls and see if this is normal.
This is like typical wilderness behavior.
Because he's cleaning himself a lot and he hasn't once drank his own pee. You know what I mean?
Just something seems off. I don't know.
And although it would make sense if like teen Eragon was just stinky the whole time, it really brings some new context to the whole Arya Eragon interaction. No. She would have been into it.
She was fine. She was like, I kind of like him, but like...
He's kind of cute, but he stinks. The B.O. And he's a teen.
Yeah, I mean, yes, mostly that. I could get past it if he wasn't so smelly.
He just could get past the smell.
He really did almost never bathe. It was Oramus, right? It was like, you have to take a bath every day.
And wasn't he like every day?
Yes. What a mess, dude.
So funny.
Yes, but I did like here, Thorn makes Murtagh, after all the bathing, he makes Murtagh catch a hint of sleep before making his way into the city. And the campfire chatter is exactly what I think we're coming to expect of these two. It's nice and light, a little bit of razzing. Do you think they just feel like classic bros to you?
Yeah. For sure. I would want to hang out with these guys.
I mean, I guess what's less classic maybe is the last part of their nighttime routine, which is speaking their true names to each other every night. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you did this with your bros all the time.
Oh,
just like revealed the depth of your identity to one another right before falling asleep.
We'd razz each other and then we'd look deeply into each other's eyes and tell them the soul of our being.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
That's a typical like dude sleepover.
Yeah. Just buds.
Just
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally.
I did think it was telling that, like, already after the events just of this day, Murtagh's, like, true name has changed, like, as more of the reality. I think it's the way he thinks about it, it's like the reality of this war and like the fallout from it is sinking in enough that like he is a different person.
Yeah, and this was actually the most responsible thing I've heard from Murtagh in this book so far.
Yeah.
Taking responsibility for his actions despite his situation with Gal and the slavery and all that.
Yeah.
Gives him more agency in his trauma, I think, and allows him to address it in a clear-cut way.
I think that's a good point.
He can move forward with the clear narrative. He can make amends.
Yeah.
He can try to be better. He can do good. He can apologize to people he's hurt. He can take ownership of his bad. Those are all things he can act on.
That would be impossible if he's just going to bury his head in the sand
Exactly.
and think like, we were being controlled. This isn't our fault. I mean, Thorne even says that.
Yes.
And they both think it, and it is true. But like this approach or like kind of moving past that to like just the core responsibility of it.
By couching it in, I could do some good. I can make amends. I can be better. There's a motivation to do all of that.
Yeah,
that pushes that
point.
forward. Whereas right now they don't have that. There is no like motivation to be better because they're not really thinking about it in that way.
Well, and I think the only way to get there too is just to say like all of this is not happening to us. Like,
yeah, we have a part to play in this.
Yes.
Yeah. And I also think it says his true name changed, and this happens like many times.
Yeah.
That was more change than I thought would be happening year to year. But
really?
I do like this. It seems more realistic. What do you think? Do you think you having an identity level change monthly, is that a function of their intense and like dangerous existence? Is that normal? Do you think this is par for the course? Or
yeah, I guess I remember it saying that and didn't like it kind of made immediate sense to me from the perspective that like after the war, all they really have to reflect on are these like months of trauma and like subjugation and then like obvious fighting and murder and all these fraught interactions with all the people that they know in the world. And it's like when you come out of that to just like roam the countryside, you're going to be like working through all of that. I think that'll just change who you are so many times as you try to deal and grapple with that. Your life is so different now and like you have to respond so differently to it. I think it made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I guess their place in the world, you know, if your job changes and your home changes and your family changes or how you're perceived by people change.
Yeah.
Like anything you do that interacts with any of those things is going to change your identity.
I think I just got the read that this would be a particularly tumultuous time. Not that everybody's true names are changing every month, but like this is a wild time to be alive for them, and they basically are having to rebuild their identities from scratch. So it's like every new brick you lay on is going to change the house a little bit.
It's like, who are we as a duo?
Yeah. So
they're a band. They should start a band. That's what they are. They already do poetry.
The sharpened afflictions.
Yes.
So I do think it makes perfect sense, though, that like all this heavy pre-bedtime talk leads to a pretty fitful sleep for Murtagh, dreaming of the undead soldiers like dragging him into the lake. It's very cinematic, I thought, like very Lord of the Rings almost.
Yes, totally.
But that means our sweet little dandy is left tired, sore, and sick when he wakes up on meager rations, and it's the morning of his big job interview. It's a tough look. And Thorne is super anxious to be left behind, but he convinces Murtagh to at least heal like those minor wounds and the sore throat. So I think Thorne, even though he's scared, is largely still our voice of reason in this situation.
100%.
Yes, which leaves Murtagh somewhat battered, fish head still in tow, knocking on the front door of Captain Wren's barracks. The door guard almost dismisses him on sight, but because of Muckmaw, he makes it in to take his first entrance exam, a fight with the master at arms, Gert. I really liked Gert.
Classic. When I got my first job, I had to wrestle the manager.
Well, yeah. I mean, how else do people give you jobs?
Exactly.
That's how you let me start this podcast.
Like, if you're going to be if you want to join, you must fight me.
That's how we hired Kevin.
Yeah. Kevin killed a guy. It was wild.
You're not supposed to talk about that, Dane.
It's
Jesus
fine.
Christ.
It's self-defense, everybody.
Well, Murtagh, much like Kevin, handled his shit in this fight, even if he does get a little showy with the sword tricks. He like cannot help himself from like showing off a little bit. I liked that.
I love it. He's such a show-off.
Yes, he thinks that he's convinced Gert that he's just a regular country bumpkin who had the good luck to have a really good teacher, but like, damn, does that feel like a stretch for me?
Yeah.
He is, by the transitive property of swordsman, as established during during Inheritance, the best swordsman on the planet, right?
Yeah,
but
we did the math last season.
We did, yes. Yeah. We put in the work. But Gert seems to buy it, so whatever, I guess we will too. Which means it's on to his second entrance exam, a meeting with the big boss. Murtagh brings all of his worldly wiles to bear on Captain Wren, judging the man by what's in his office. Wren sounds like a sharp, shrewd, precise, and capable man, and Murtagh notices right away that the only flaw here seems to be his like mangled, weird hands. And like immediately I'm in. Wren is super intimidating. I want to know what his deal is. And with the hook set, Chris lures us in further by describing the main focal point of this room, which is Captain Wren's like collection of rudimentary like
masks.
Yeah, archaic sounding animal masks. I don't get the vibe that Wren is totally sold on Murtagh's story when he tells it, but he does pay our guy the bounty for Muckmaws' head, and I liked that the coins are embossed with Niswada's face. It's good to bring her up here because yeah, the rest of their interview is full of like little tensions and throwaway comments that hint at the new reality that her empire has to face after the war. I thought it was like a cute little trick of Christopher Paolini's.
Yes.
That's like, remember this lady? Remember why the currency is different?
She's here.
Things are kind of weird here. Like they're trying to figure out who's on what side, where like they could have easily been veterans who faced each other on the battlefield.
They're leaving it open so you don't have to say which side you were on.
I really liked all that kind of political, like low-level intrigue here. But Murtagh's cover story that he tells hits on just so many of his big T traumas, including claiming to be from that small town that Galbatorix ordered him to do that like teeny tiny backwoods genocide of, which was the whole reason he ran away from Earlbane in the first place. Like, it's like you don't need to dredge everything up all the time, Murtagh.
And notably, I think was still burned to the ground.
Yes, I'm like, dude, why would you talk about that?
I don't know.
But as Wren wraps up their interview explaining that the oaths Murtagh will have to swear to the Empire and its queen president aren't full Gal level binding. It's not an ancient language oath.
Let's just poor management.
Yes. Yes, Wren does drop a hint of hot take about Niswada's magical Gestapo. So something is for sure up with this dude and his mangled hands. Like, I
don't know what it is.
I think he's a little anti-Empire, but he could totally just be testing his new recruit to see if Murtagh is anti-Empire. You know?
Mysteries abound.
I know. But before Murtagh gets to the worst part of any new job, which is formally dedicating your life to your boss in perpetuity, he's
Another
distracted.
thing I made you do before we started this podcast.
I know. Blink twice if you need help.
We'll edit that out.
But Murtagh's distracted yet again by Captain Wren's mask collection, and these really got me too. They're very cool.
Yes.
Wren explains that they're very rare in Alagasia. They're made by a nomadic culture in the grasslands that I was racking my brain a little to figure out if we've heard of this before. And, you know, since you did an hour of research about the size of the cave bear, maybe you can help me a little bit. Do you think these are the wandering tribes? Because the masks feel stylistically very different from like the way we saw like the jewelry and stuff their artisans made.
Well, my ADD did not hyperfixate on this. But I actually think these are the tribes that Eragon talked about near Mount Agnor?
Arngor,
like near east, like in the far east of where we are right now.
Okay.
That's purely a guess though. They just, because we only heard them mentioned.
Oh, okay.
These don't seem like the wandering tribes thing for
I feel
me.
really sure they're not wandering tribes adjacent. But
so I'm like, well, the only other nomadic
unless
people
it's like
we know,
archaic wandering tribes,
or it's that's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think
he says nomadic tribes.
I think you're right.
It's the only thing I could put to it.
That makes a lot of sense. But the masks get even cooler when Wren puts one on. It seems to have some sort of like spell on it that shapeshifts Wren into a bear.
Yeah, it's
cool. The captain insinuates that the masks were made for something nefarious. He's like, oh, you think it's bad now, but like it gets worse, my guy. And it's like, oh, uh-oh. Which leaves my section of chapters to wrap up as an actual golden retriever in human form named Esvar comes to witness Murtagh like struggle his emo way through his oaths. He's like halting his speech and like taking deep breaths.
He's so dramatic.
I have a feeling, Dane, we're gonna get some tortured poetry about like Murtagh's life as an oath breaker.
Oh yes. Well, that takes us to chapter 9 through 13. And pretty quick, Murtagh finds the door he's looking for.
Perfect.
Yeah, we're done. Those are my chapter.
We got it.
But it seems like he's going to have to wait until the men are asleep to take a crack at finding Silna.
Yes.
Because he has a job now and he has responsibilities.
I did love that it was like, okay, we know exactly where this is. He's in the building, but like, he's got to do his side work before he can clock out, you know?
Yeah, just like a Reba song comes on. Working 9 to 5. All right.
Dolly Parton?
Is that Dolly Parton? Oh,
Sir.
no. I did it on the
Put some
podcast.
respect on Dolly Parton's name. We're fighting now. We can finish this episode, but no one but me. Don't worry. I will take care of this for all of us Dolly Parton fans.
Yeah, my bad. I'm so sorry. I miss Okay, I'm going to move on.
Boo.
Yeah. He has to talk with Esvar, meet all the guards, share his story about the fish. And as he does all these things, Murtagh keeps coming back to the fact that he won't be able to gain some of these guys' trust until some time passes, and even feels bad that he'll be leaving so soon because of it.
You know what I was just thinking? Like, as he's sitting down telling all his cool stories.
Yeah.
I think it's written as like he's begrudgingly talking to all these people.
Yes.
But you know, that's from Murtagh's point of view, and maybe he's a little bit of an unreliable narrator because maybe he's really like working the room and he's like immediately the most popular guy at school, and that's why he's sad he's gonna have to go. He's like,
gotta go.
They fucking love me here. I crushed it.
Well, either way, it's kind of heartbreaking because it's clear he just wants to have some bro time.
Yeah.
With like other people.
That's true.
And he clearly wants friends and wants to be around a large group of people.
Yeah.
And throughout this episode with the guards, there's this deep regret that he has to betray them and leave this place as an oath breaker yet again.
Yeah.
It's all very sad.
It is sad.
One cool thing we get is Esvar explaining the battle with Morzan and Brom in the streets of Gilead.
Yes.
And I love that no one knew who Brom was in the story here. Esvar doesn't know it's Brom.
Yeah, it was like some powerful magician.
Yeah, it's like really fun, like world building stuff.
Fun
here.
pop out.
Yeah, it's really great. This is where he died and his dragon died.
Yes, yeah.
It's crazy. Murtagh also gets that sweet craft services treatment right out the gate. It goes on at length once again about someone cooking for him.
Yeah.
And this is top tier like character tick for me. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It comes up every time he
Every
gets food.
time, yeah.
This dude with him, Esvar, sounds like a chatterbox and peppers Murtagh the whole time with questions about the Battle of the Burning Plains. He talks about Eragon and Saphira and how brave they are. And
they're so cool.
Yeah,
they saved all of our lives. They fought that asshole Murtagh.
Yeah, he's like, ooh. Murtagh gets saved by Gert at some point.
Yeah.
And Esvar chills out, which lets like some of the gossip flow. Turns out that Nasawada is going to marry, like who she's going to marry is a like topic of conversation.
Oh, I did like that. That was a little funny.
Yeah, and of course Murtagh gets filled with rage because he loves her.
He loves her. He doesn't want to think about her marrying for convenience.
He doesn't have to think long though, because then they have to drill the soldiers in the courtyard, and that means Murtagh has to get to work.
Yes.
I bet he took off his shirt.
You know he did.
Yes, for sure. And admitting he likes it, he realizes that he can see the appeal of following rather than leading.
Yes.
And I wish he just followed Eragon and was with his bro, because I think he would like, I think we're seeing that Murtagh doesn't want to really be a leader. It seems like every time this happens, he's like, well, this is nice.
Yes. And it's funny. I feel like the writing here really like got at that duality, like the differences between what Murtagh actually seems to enjoy as it's happening, and also the story he tells himself, because it's like he doesn't think of himself as a follower, and I don't know if he ever can, to be honest. But
I don't think so.
In reality, he does like to be a part of a group. He likes to be like in community with other people, and he likes to trust in the people he loves. And like, you know, I think he would, it just makes me think of like Naswada and how hard he goes defending some of her decisions that we think are very questionable.
Yes.
You know, it's like if he could get there with Eragon, or like even someone like Arya and Auric, like if he were a part of the fold, he would like, he'd almost be like Roran, like really being a great support act, like a diehard, loyal guy, fighter.
You know, it's funny because clearly he wants a family, which is what that is, right?
Yeah.
But I think even that it's also another juxtaposition between him and Eragon, because Eragon always wanted to be alone. Yes. The moment he was with people, he would be like,
The city's tough.
I do not like this.
Well, and also, I mean, Eragon was a quintessential, like, reluctant leader.
Yes.
You know, he doesn't want leadership actively, and yet it is foisted upon him, and kind of by virtue of that, he's a good leader. It's kind of the going wisdom. So I think it's interesting that Murtagh, in so many ways, is the diametric opposite of that.
Yeah, and it makes sense that he's more social.
Yeah.
Anyway, Gert stops by at some point and tells Murtagh that Lord Relgan wants to meet the man who killed the giant fish.
Yes.
Which pretty much settles Murtagh's timeline.
Yeah, he's got to get out of here.
He's got to find the Werecat child tonight.
Yeah.
And as he would, like, he's for sure going to get noticed by Lord Relgan.
Oh, yeah, he knows him, right?
He knows him.
Yeah.
So the race is on, and as soon as everyone is asleep, he's going to have to find where this Werekitty's hidden. Murtagh keeps this Thorn in the loop, and after their check-in, like, he leaves for a bit and talks to Thorn.
Yeah.
When he's back chatting with his orientation buddy, the most horrific thing in this book so far, by a long shot, happens. After they head to bed, we learn their wake-up call for these dudes?
Yeah.
3 a.m. 2 hours before dawn. That's insanely early. This should be illegal.
Dude.
Gal was bad, but this is criminal. All right? This is some real monster shit.
You know it's bad if you think it's bad. I'm like, that sounds like I would still be awake from the night before. You wake up kind of early, and this is
I wake up kind of early, and I got to be honest. Also, I know Gal was bad. But I don't think he would have. I don't think he would have signed up. I don't think he would have signed up on this. You know what I mean? I don't think he would have done that. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, Murtagh listens to the other dudes to see when they fall asleep and decides that he will compose a poem.
Of course he
to
will.
pass the time.
Yeah, why wouldn't he?
It's an extra sad one.
And
at the end of it, he whispers, "Forgive me."
That is the most emo
thing.
Maybe at the end of this, we're going to have to rank our top Murtagh emo moments, because this might be number one for me.
So wild. Before drifting straight to sleep, into a nightmare. Not for long, though.
Of course.
He wakes up. Stump times his new coworkers to make sure they're still asleep.
Okay, good.
Gears up for his dungeon run.
Yes.
Heads down the stairs.
Let's do it.
Through the tunnel at the bottom. He gets to the wards with the name and name,
Yes,
makes him go to sleep.
yeah.
Takes the key off that guy, pulls him into the room he's trying to go to.
Yes.
It's a pretty perfect opening sequence for our boy so far.
Yes.
Just a perfect Murtagh side note, though. As he grabs this key, he does a spare moment to think about how dirty this peasant is. And it seems like this is something of a habit for Murtagh.
Yeah.
And I like cleanliness as much as the next uppity noble. But he's really making some character assessments based on people's bathing habits. You know what I mean?
I mean, all the best coffee shop hipsters do, Dane. Like, the beard grooming is not on point enough for Murtagh.
Yeah, it's true. So Murtagh's beard is oiled, confirmed.
Absolutely.
Right? And like that tight
No,
cut.
he hates to have his
Shaved
beard.
cut?
He does
Yeah.
need to shave. He's very annoying about it. And he won't shave with magic. He's scared.
He's above that.
No, he's scared of
Yeah,
it.
he's like,
which
I'll
is,
rip my face off.
Yeah.
But we can't dwell on all this because the room he enters is awesome.
Yes.
It's a classic war room, and the door that leads deeper into the catacombs is carved with Dwarven runes and is made of special black-needled pine tree called Mogren.
I think so,
I
yeah.
think it's Mogren.
It's like stronger than anything.
We learned it's a werewood,
Okay.
denser than oak,
Damn.
harder than metal.
That's crazy.
Classic Dwarven craftsmanship.
Yes.
Chris really keeps the dwarfs going strong.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah,
I
every
just
little
love
piece
it.
of their lore is like better than the last.
I want a book set there. Anyway, the key to this door appears to be one of Weiren's masks, so we get some pretty fun magic MacGyvering from Murtagh to fit some scrap wood to the impression in the door.
Yeah.
Only it pays off not at all. He just ends up breaking the door.
Great.
And how does this happen? Wouldn't breaking such a strong door take a lot of energy? I'm confused.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that, but also
I don't understand.
He has the name of names and is
It's got to be the name of names or something.
I guess I thought, to be honest, I thought that the mask got close enough to the impression that like the door was opening and broke. It's not like he like raw dog broke the wood from nothing, starting from zero.
Well, let's not dive too deep into that because
okay.
breaking the door must have triggered some sort of alarm.
Yes,
so
bad.
Time crunch is now crunchier.
Yes.
In the next room, there's quartz gems glowing with life.
Oh my God, this was
magic.
So cool.
But even more interesting, the room is encased in ribs.
Ugh.
It's dragon ribs.
Yeah.
My first thought was Glader.
Yeah.
But we know the elves burned his body. So
Yeah,
it's
I
not,
had
it's
the
not
same
Glader.
progression.
Yeah,
I was like, this has
nope.
got to be Glader.
Can't be that. But Murtagh thinks it might be Morzan's dragon.
Crazy.
So his dad's dragon.
And it would be... It's
Hell
weird
yeah.
because Murtagh has never thought about Morzan's dragon before, even though
No.
he must have seen it.
Well, maybe not. So remember, Morzan's dragon lost his name. When he lost his name, he turned into an animal.
Yeah.
And so I think when Morzan was home, he probably had to lock his dragon up like a wild dog.
That's wild.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I bet you're right.
So he probably doesn't really even have any interactions because he was like 3 when all that stuff happened.
Yeah, and then Brom killed him.
So maybe he
Both.
saw him once or twice, but it would have been as a kid.
Yes.
Weird.
That did, when he kind of figured that out, I was like, is Morzan's body about to be down here?
It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, the whole room is like clearly a wizard's room.
Yes.
It's got an alchemist lab, a spell book, magic lanterns, potions labeled health, strength,
Yeah.
fire, and gems full of energy.
Yes.
And, the coup de grace. There is an ancient language dictionary.
Nice.
Murtagh's so excited and steals it immediately.
Yes, the pièce de résistance of this magical layer.
So funny. Yeah, he takes that and he takes a gem that already has energy in it.
Perfect.
And I love this. He's just taking what he needs.
Yes, loot him, Murtagh.
Yeah. After looting the place, he goes to a yellow skull door with an iron ring and a bunch of gems that contain lots of energy within them, which Murtagh suspects is trapped.
Okay.
He thinks about the trap for a while, pondering on how to get around it. And I love Murtagh. I like that he's not as well trained in magic. It's a refreshing change from Eragon and really highlights how little Murtagh knows. And this was just perfect and fun, and
Yeah.
I loved it. Time is becoming a real factor here, though, and taking inspiration from Eragon, who defeated Gal by trying to help rather than hurt. Murtagh decides to finesse his intention to suck the energy out of the gems into the diamond he took. He takes so much energy that the stone he has might explode.
Yes.
So now he's got a bunch of fucking energy.
That was wild.
So
to
cool.
me.
And it gets hot to the touch.
Yes, and it makes a lot of sense with what we know about energies in the diamond, that it would like build up that heat reserve and at some point tap out on how much energy you can put in it.
And it answered a question I'd always had. They made a big to-do about the belt of Beor the Wise,
Yeah,
like
Beloth.
Beloth the Wise, having like perfectly cut gems from all the races, and they found them and all this stuff. And I was like, why do you need to do that? These gems just hold endless amounts. Well, they don't. They,
Only if they're like flawless
and like perfectly cut and all this stuff. So that made that all make sense.
Justice for a braided belt.
Yeah. No, never. Never.
Savage.
Then he moves the energy to a Werelight to absorb it.
Yes.
When his little thing is full, and he sucks the door dry and dodges the death to both.
I'm not gonna lie, I was so frustrated that he like literally just lit all that free energy on fire. I was like, dude, the box of all those other gems that we just saw on screen is 5 feet behind you. Like, especially because you don't have to be in physical contact with these gems to like transfer the energy around. I'm like, why couldn't we have channeled it in? Maybe I'm too like Wheel of Time brain. I'm like, channel it in there.
No,
but, like,
hard agree, man. All that energy is just sitting there to be used.
dude.
But I think this is just how the real downside of him not being as familiar with magic.
Yes.
I think
I
he
agree
felt
with
rushed.
you. I agree with you. That is kind of a fun dimension of this read, to be like, oh, we're in so many ways back at square one, watching him really trying to like cobble together some Lincoln logs that are not from the same set.
Yeah, it's just like, come on, man.
Yeah.
It was right there for you.
Yeah.
But anyway, on the other side of the door, he finds a garden with all manner of fantastical sounding plants.
Super cool.
It seems like an alchemist's dream. There's even one of the living golden lilies that Eragon and Arya, along with a spirit, made back in Brisingar after Eragon killed the Razak.
Yes.
Super cool.
Yeah.
There's some really interesting stuff, including a frog-eating tentacle plant. I love the description here. Also, it's cool to think someone is trying to grow and cultivate the golden lilies. I love that.
Yes.
That was like, we were like, someone's going to try to do that, right?
I think so. I think both of us at the time, hopefully it made it on air. We cut it because we're bad people, but we're like, you'd steal this, right?
I'd instantly take that. Yeah.
I feel like this scene really grounded me back in. It's one of the things that felt so consistent with Christopher Paolini's writing. It felt like reading the descriptions like early on from like Trondheim and Ellis Mira and like a lot of these magical wonders of the world. It's like, fuck yes.
I will say, of this part of this book, this is my favorite part.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I feel the same. I mean, we're just fucking world building junkies.
Yeah.
We're like, give us all the magic.
We're such nerds, dude.
Yeah.
Then Murtagh spots a crystal case with what clearly looks like a Razak egg, right?
100%.
It's an ugly, evil egg,
yes.
right? Okay.
Anytime you look at something and think, that looks evil.
It's like, it's Razak,
That's
right?
Razak.
That's a boogie boy right there.
Yep.
For the first time, he wishes Arya and Aragon were there because
It's
he's
so interesting.
Yeah, he's feeling a little out of his depth.
amazing.
And it's above this dirty cop's pay grade, right?
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, he joined the police force. He's a cop.
And he's already stealing. He's like, I'll take that.
That'll be mine.
Yeah, just a little off the top. And again, Murtagh is such a dandy. He's in this room with all this cool stuff that we were just talking about how cool it was, the decor, the furnishings, the magic, the diamonds. And he comes to the conclusion that whoever owns this place has style. He thinks that's the most dangerous characteristic. I'm just kidding. I'm joking, of course. But I do love that he hones in on the furnishings.
Yes, he's like, not only is this person powerful and they know so much about the lore, but like, damn it if they don't have panache. You're like, what?
He's like, the feng shui in here is perfect.
Yes.
But interior design aesthetics aside, we've reached the final tour.
Okay.
And this one is stone, specifically granite with no magic he can perceive, which makes him worry he's about to be tricked or was tricked by Carabel.
I felt the same.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit.
I was like, not just a normal door.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that when he opens the door, it seems like an empty cell.
Yeah.
This triggers a memory of himself and Thorn in the dungeons, alone with the screams of other prisoners filling the air, and Gal's mind pushing down on him. He just wanted the remote. Gal was like, where's the remote? I'm just kidding. Murtagh smells a small blanket, fear in the air, and clearly this prisoner is gone.
It's bad.
Which makes Murtagh angry, very, very angry. That's when he's struck by a were-kitten going straight for the jugular. No good deed goes unpunished.
I mean,
right?
Okay, in fairness to the cat, like the only person who's come in this room has been her attackers probably, everything in here is just like freaky shit. It makes sense that she'd attack the first person she sees.
Yeah, no, that tracks. I would make fun of her if she didn't.
Yeah,
right? Okay.
yeah.
Well, Silna, super cat-like from the jump.
Yes.
Decides she just wants to get the fuck out. And isn't really in a listening mood.
It's weird.
Like most of the werecats we meet.
Yeah, most cats are just like super reasonable and want to obey your commands.
Yeah, which is a problem because just as she makes a break for it, some adversaries finally show, and it's our work bestie, Esvar.
No.
A trio of nameless guards and a sinister-looking magician from Dvrengagata.
I have to admit that got me a little bit. I don't know why I wasn't expecting to see Esvar. It makes
course.
perfect sense, but I was like, no.
Why build him up, right?
I was so sad.
Murtagh doesn't get a moment to spare for his favorite overpowered magic trick because the caster and the fighters attack him all in a blur of mental and physical onslaught. Murtagh locks up his psychological fortress to focus on using his little weenie sword to batter the three extras in a way that will circumvent their wards, which mostly ended up meaning like damaging their eardrums and giving them concussions, you know?
Yes, I do always feel like we're peak Christopher Paolini, grounded in an Inheritance, like World of Eragon book when there's some head trauma involved.
Of course.
I'm like, yes, concussions, go.
I'm just surprised Murtagh hasn't passed out yet.
I mean, he did at least once with the fish.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He has blacked out once.
Fear not.
Murtagh has to face down poor Esvar now. And this sad, sweet boy is genuinely and a little heartbreakingly betrayed by his new bestie. Murtagh lands a particularly Murtagh does not like that, and lands a particularly rage-filled stab right in Esvar's chest.
It was wild.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, and then instantly bears down on the opposing magician's mind with a ferocity that causes the old man to pass out cold. Hey, there's a head wound. In seconds,
we're back.
Someone's fading. Even Murtagh is a little surprised by his quick success.
Yes, that was wild to me.
Yeah, was he just old or something?
Well, I just think Murtagh is like so like in such a tizzy, and he's so keyed up from like having to confront what a piece of shit he's been to Esvar. Basically, that's why he rages out on Esvar.
Yeah,
that
sad.
Like immediately after that, he pivots, still full of this rage, and just like clamps down on this guy till like his mind. I feel like I picture it as like his mind shrinking down to nothing, and him just like going because he can't have thoughts.
Yeah,
he can't think to breathe.
Well, don't get Murtagh mad. Well,
yeah.
Anyway, but his escape window is closing by the moment, so he contents himself to pull another bird skull amulet off the caster.
I know there's another one down here.
Yeesh. He heals Esvar, thank God, and gets the fuck out of here, running into the Warren of tunnels under Gilead, scooping Silna on his way.
Just like a football, huh?
Yeah.
Liked that.
Yeah. So into the darkness, Murtagh goes, using an old trick Tornek taught him when he used to run hedge mazes at rich people's parties. Just another classic daddy backstory tidbit. Always turn left, just so you know.
I mean, it does seem like a dubious strategy to me. When I read it, I'm like, that can't possibly work. But apparently it's foolproof, and I've never been in a hedge maze on a private estate, so what the fuck do I know?
What indeed, Jackie?
I know. I've only ever gotten lost in a corn maze in a rural town.
So funny. Well, because this gambit carries Murtagh straight out of earshot of his pursuers, which just leaves our emo boy alone in the dark with his PTSD. Sounds like an equally shitty like tunnel run, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not good.
The highlights include, I won't go painstakingly in detail, Silna not speaking a word to him.
Great.
Fun. Hours trudging through the darkness. Flashbacks to Murtagh covered in biting spiders under Urobane.
Hated that.
So gross. And after all this, Silna just takes off into the city, leaving him in her dust.
I could not believe that.
I was shocked.
I mean, I know I'm a cat owner, and I mean, it makes sense as soon as it happens, but I was just like, oh no.
I will say, I just, that solidified for me this whole experience. I think an unpopular opinion.
Oh,
I'm gonna say it right now. Of all the races in Alagasia that we've learned about, I dislike the Werecats the most.
wow.
They make the most sense. They're very fantastical. They're very fun. They're very mysterious. But I just like every time, and I just kind of am mildly annoyed every time. I was like, yeah, no, that makes sense. But also like, come on, man.
Like, be normal.
Just please, just like chill out. You know what I mean?
More than the haughty elves with no religion.
Let's just say
who worship that tree.
Which let's just say it's close. All right? Anyway, Murtagh's first thought, write an email to me if you feel strongly about it. Murtagh's first thought, having lost the little werecat, is to find Carabel and just force her to give him the intel.
Crazy town.
Dark Murtagh, even for you. Can you imagine if Polly just went straight grimdark and Murtagh like tortured the werecat for information?
Dude.
Tell it to me. He's just like
too big of a tone shift, Chris.
that would be wild.
Yeah.
With that warm thought, the night passes, and as the dawn blooms, Murtagh slinks his way through the silent and spooky alleyways and streets.
Yes.
And he wakes his way back to the cat study without incident and enters without knocking, which I love. Murtagh's so sassy. It's
Yes,
great.
he's here for business now.
At her desk in cat form, Carabel looks dope. Big white mane, 3 times the size of a house cat.
Yeah.
More importantly, little Silna is here.
Oh, good.
Peacefully being cleaned, but what we find out is her mom's tongue.
Okay.
Talk about a close-knit family, am I right? Anyway, Murtagh's instantly Sorry, I love that. Murtagh is instantly relieved the little werecat is all right.
Yeah.
Well, no. She ran away. That's all I'm saying.
He loves children, Dane.
I know.
He just wanted her to be safe.
Yeah, that's fair.
You don't go through all of that to rescue somebody and then just be like, well, fuck her as soon as she runs away.
That's true. And what am I saying? If this was real life and like I found a kid I helped save, I'd be like, oh my God. I
he
wouldn't be
made
like,
it.
hey.
No,
Yeah, that makes
you're
sense.
a dad. You would go up to that kid and be like, I'm so glad you're safe, but I'm disappointed in your actions.
Yeah, exactly.
You have no idea how much you scared me.
It's very true. Well, anyway, he drops his bread roll and like starts talking.
Yeah.
Carabel seems to want to communicate in his head, like how Solomon exclusively talked to Eragon.
That's right.
And Murtagh is not having it.
Yes.
I love this. I
That's
read
right.
it as Murtagh not liking people in his head and wanting a straight conversation. Maybe it's racism. Think Murtagh isn't into having cats either, Jax? Isn't Murtagh a dog man? Maybe he's a dog boy and he's a hound.
I mean, absolutely, he's a dog guy. But
Yeah.
also, I think this is just yet another way you and Murtagh are the same.
It's true. He's like, I don't like these cats.
This is weird. I don't like it.
I don't like you guys. In any case, Carabel obliges and changes into her little human form
Yes.
and is just naked.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was a bit of a jump scare for both of us.
I was like, yeah, it makes sense. But
Oh,
wow.
but Murtagh's not affected by this display of nudity at all. He's super tired, irritated, probably a
Yeah.
little frustrated, and always filled with a little angst.
That's our guy.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Same, dude.
Maybe that was his play all along. Just wanted to see Carabel.
Oh, gross.
My
Why
bad.
are you like this?
I'm sorry, everybody. I'm on one today. After some light verbal sparring, Murtagh explains in a surprising degree of detail how he rescued Silna. And during the garden description, Carabel confirms that there are more Rozak out there.
I was so just like, no.
I know. I was kind of sad, but I like the Rozak as a villain, so I was like, what Boogie Boys?
Worst race is
Yeah.
the Werecats
Of
when
course.
you have Rozak
Of
and
course.
Leatherblocka.
Of course.
What is wrong with you?
Well, because at least they're evil.
Stop.
the Werecats are just like chaotic,
Neutral.
annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're neutral, like cats.
And when Murtagh convinces the cat to do her side of the quid pro quo, we get the real tea.
Okay, let's go.
The Dreamers, led by witch Bashel, have access to secret magics and are becoming more and more common throughout the Empire.
Okay.
This includes elves and Urgles, as well as powerful human merchant families and old nobility, making the Dreamers alarmingly influential. All Dreamers kill themselves when questioned, so their goals are unclear.
Okay.
5 Werecats have gone to seek out the secrets of this witch. None have returned.
Oh.
Michelle must be somewhere near the remote Bay of Fundor,
Okay.
where trade ships are known to travel even in the winter with passengers who hide their face and minds.
Gotcha. Seunon's on that bay, right? It's just a big bay.
It's just a big bay
Yeah.
that goes all the way up. A sailor told the Werecat about a village in the area with a rotten egg smell and smoke rising from a black fence.
Yes,
and
classics.
and then he died after
Oh,
revealing
great.
that. Murtagh thinks back to what Umaroth told him at the end of the inheritance.
Yep.
Quote, avoid to the ruins of Roengard, which he's already been to, and El Harem. Beware the deep, and tread not where the ground grows black and brittle, and the air smells of brimstone. For in those places, evil lurks.
Uh-oh.
Do this, and unless you are greatly unfortunate, you shall not encounter danger beyond your ability to master.
I do love that Umaroth is like, just listen to me, and unless you're really fucking stupid,
Yes.
you're gonna be fine.
So whatever this group is, like this is the thing. This is really the more reason I brought it up, not that he's being a goofball, but Eragon could shed light on this with the Eldenari's help
Yes.
right away, right
Yeah.
now. It seems like Murtagh could get information right now in this group and like what's in the Blackstone area. My vote is contact Eragon pronto. This seems major.
Yes, I totally agree. That would be the smart thing to do. But
Yeah.
as established, Murtagh is working through some things.
He's working through some trauma.
He's not
here.
historically a good decision maker, and it might be a while till we see him get there.
I don't know. The book is long. I'm sure it'll go to Eragon anytime now. Murtagh then asks about Nasawada, Arya, and Eragon, and if Carabel has contacted any of them with this information.
Yes.
She says something I have mixed feelings about, that she
Yeah.
can't really reach out to them with so little information. Murtagh disagrees, and Carabel says, like, bring it to the queen then. Everyone knows you two are close.
Oh, yeah, that was cheeky.
Yeah, which to me sounds like was her plan the whole time, to be honest.
Oh.
She wanted Murtagh to take this to the queen so she didn't have to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of layers to her. I do think he did a good job of making her seem like a really sly cat.
Yes, for
You
sure.
know?
I think, too, it's interesting that Murtagh goes so hard on Carabel about, like, why would you not have brought this information to anybody when he definitely does not do that himself?
Yeah, right? And he kind of loses it. He goes on about not slandering the queen
Yes.
or himself.
He did not like that.
Yeah, about like these rumors that is spreading, and then asks who's spreading the rumors.
Yeah.
And this response strikes me as another thing that separates Eragon from Murtagh. Murtagh is including himself in the outrage here.
Yeah.
And while I don't disagree with someone standing out for themselves at all, it's just not something Eragon would have taken offense to at all.
Yeah.
I think Murtagh, despite his hatred of his past like parentage, has a high opinion of his station, which makes him a very interesting character. This is something I think is pretty realistic. It's like an ingrained privilege he maintains despite how he thinks about it himself and its origins. He
Yeah.
clearly has some like conflicting beliefs in himself.
It is interesting, you're right, because I didn't even think about how often he thinks of himself and like the flaws that he has, but at the same time his like knee-jerk gut level reaction
Yeah.
is like, you will not be slandering my good name in that way. I'm like, he has this inflated sense of his like self-worth.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that is the classy, like the classiness.
Or like his external self-worth. I
his
guess, is maybe
external
a
self-worth.
better
because
way to put that.
It's almost completely disconnected from, we know he thinks badly about himself.
Yes, yeah.
So-
The internal versus external conflict there is really interesting.
But at the end of the day, he's still like, I am who I am.
Yeah.
So shut your mouth.
yeah, and put
Which
some
is-
respect on that name.
But I don't think it's a writer thing.
No.
He never brings writer
No,
into
he
it.
doesn't.
It's just like he himself.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Anyway.
Nobles, man.
Yeah.
Classists, am I
His
right?
classists, am I right? Anyway, his little freak out gets Carabel to agree to write a message to Nasawada, but only if you'll pin a corroboration of the events.
Yeah.
And this cat can bargain with the best of them.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, she needs to meet up with Helen. They should go into business together. They think a killing.
I mean, how do you know they're not already in business together? We know Helen's well connected.
That's
I could
true.
totally see these two being friends.
I bet you Carabel is like totally a contractor for Helen.
100%.
Murtagh decides against visiting Nasawada to insulate her from the political fallout
Okay.
of just him. And because he feels guilty for hurting her in the past.
Yes.
To confirm his identity, though, on this letter, he uses his famous line for inheritance, you know why.
Yeah.
Smooth move, Murtagh.
He's got to talk his shit, Dane. He's got to spit his game.
Yeah, he might take a lot of long turns, but when it comes to spitting game, he's always turning the
That's
right
our
way.
boy.
Yeah. Carabel thanks him and offers cryptic advice before Silna hugs him, expressing her gratitude for her rescue, which
Yeah.
leaves Murtagh tearful and speechless.
Yeah, that was really poignant.
Yeah, which, I mean, is he crying because of the honest thanks? He's feeling like a hero? the rare physical touch of another person? Is it exhaustion? Is it all of it?
Yeah, I think it's got to be a barrel of a little from columns A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Caravel also assures Murtagh that the Werecat people are his allies.
Yeah.
Although it's amusingly ironic that his friends are the least numerous and most secretive
He finally
people.
gets like the love of an entire race, and it's like, well, you can't find us anywhere, and we're cats.
And we're not going to tell anybody.
So true.
It's like no one's going to know. He'll just, like if he told somebody, he'd be like, no, the Werecats are behind me.
They'd be like, okay.
They'd be like, I mean, maybe.
If you say so, bud.
I'm not following Caravel. She
They'd
just
be
said
like,
that.
has Alpha been giving him the therapy, or is he a little like, has he really lost it, gone off the rails?
Right? It's so funny. Anyway, Murtagh sets out to finally get back with Thorn when he's intercepted by Lyrith.
Oh, no.
And his laughing dead guards.
Were these dudes laughing dead, you
Yes,
thought? Oh,
yeah.
shit.
He says that they're holdovers from the Empire War, and like they don't feel pain. They're the ones that don't feel pain.
Oh, my God. I totally thought they like, I guess I read holdovers from the Empire War and thought they were just like still ancient language oath-bound, but not.
No, I
They're
mean,
full
maybe
laughing
I'm
dead.
wrong.
No.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's wild.
Anyway, this jerk offers to help him from the guards and the magicians on his trail.
Yes.
Which, how does he know?
I mean,
I don't know, man.
it seemed a little sus.
Yeah, it's like, come on, man. Despite Thorn's misgivings, my section ends. Woo, what a section. As Murtagh goes with them.
Yes. Maybe when we were talking about Murtagh making bad choices, I feel like this was one of them.
Yep.
But it does take us to chapters of 14 through 17. This final section opens as we forge dead ahead on this side quest to our side quest with Lyrith, spiriting Murtagh away to his massive, like, rundown stone manor.
This place was cool.
Yeah, Murtagh is at least self-aware that he's putting his curiosity ahead of his good sense when he follows Lyrith inside, but he needs the tea, Dane.
Yeah, he does.
And it's piping hot. This mansion was built by Formora, the elven forsworn that our yoga daddy killed in that ambush in the early days of Gal's coup. It was a like bedtime story Glader told to Eragon and
Yes.
Saphira.
It's the one that left them hurt.
Yes.
Yeah.
The vibe here definitely has my hackles up from the get-go, knowing that this used to belong to a Forsworn.
Yes.
And they are assuaged not at all when Murtagh treats us to some flashbacks of his childhood with Lyrith.
Yeah.
I'm sure you loved the Lord Barstrop in the memory where they stole fruit from his estate, but overall, the flashbacks left me feeling like Murtagh should 1000% not be in this dude's house.
Yes.
But then again, if he is able to give this asshole a little comeuppance, I'm maybe on board for that.
I would have been cool with that.
I'm pretty cool with that, actually.
Yeah. Vent your anger at this guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
They settle into like a tension-filled little chat where Murtagh again gets to let his dandy flag fly as he samples Lyrith's like wine and treats that they're brought. They're both trying to play their cards very close here, but it's Lyrith who shows his hand first, coming right out and asking Murtagh to overthrow High Queen President. I'm just like, what a swing, dog.
I will say it does go to the depth of how much people misunderstand Murtagh's place in history.
Yes.
Because you would not say this to him if you knew what had happened.
Well, I also, first of all, absolutely agree. Yeah.
Right.
I think, too, it's interesting. I'm just now thinking, like, Caravel clearly knew there was something going on between Murtagh and Naswada. So either, like, Lyrith is dumber or less informed than we're initially led to believe. Like, either the Werecats have some, like, good information that other people don't have.
Even before like Murtagh had left, right?
Yeah.
But even before like Nasawada had kind of moved on from that, Eragon and Nasawada and all of them had conversations in front of that Werecat.
Yeah.
So I think the Werecats just send information around to each other.
Yeah, they do
right?
keep each other informed, which, I mean, is often a gripe we have in fantasy about like separate, like disparate factions and people like you're always having this miscommunication. I think it's a whole trope about miscommunications that like
well, they need to be
lead
in
things.
miscommunication so there can be conflict.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is kind of nice to see. I guess the Werecats don't really have that, or Lyrith just thinks he knows everything and clearly doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, or it's the bias-y that Lyrith has about the Empire and thinking that Murtagh was loyal to the end.
Yes.
Because doesn't he ask why he got away? Anyway, I'm jumping ahead, but like it would make sense that he was like, help us overthrow. You're one of us, right?
Yeah. I think so. And it's definitely interesting, I think, to see that faction of Gal's nobility up close and personal for the first time. But Murtagh's not having this, obviously. He deflects. He doesn't necessarily outright put Lirith off because he wants more information.
Yeah.
And so he makes a pretty fair point about the tyranny of riders as rulers. But Lirith takes a position you might be a little sympathetic to, I thought, after one too many a deep dive and haters segment.
Okay, I do have some thoughts.
Yeah.
It's not even just that I seem to be sympathetic to the worst characters in the story either. I do think he does. I think he makes a logical point.
Okay. About the politics here.
I think sometimes I'm going to get into the deep dive, but I think sometimes we forget that these people don't know these other people.
Yes.
So sometimes we should be making some assumptions. That
it makes sense where they're coming from,
exactly.
Especially when you consider the effective reality of the political situation here.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. I would say, though, the wildest thing about it is that Murtagh actually, for a hot second, considers deposing Niswada.
I love it.
I thought opposing her would be an immediate hard pass for him, no questions asked, but he seems to be very enticed here, again, by the relative safety he and Thorne might find in power. That's the thing that kind of gets him thinking, well, would this be a good idea? But he concludes that he actually would never do that to his girl. Not a journey I thought I would be on with them, even though he comes to the conclusion I thought he would. The fact he thought about it at all, I was like, oof, woof.
Yeah, he seems to have a lot of oppositional thoughts.
Yeah.
There's a duality to him so far that's very interesting. I think, and I could be wrong, I think Paolini's trying to write that maybe Murtagh doesn't know who he is or what he wants.
I think so. I mean, in so many ways, we obviously went on that coming of age journey with Eragon through the first series as he honed in on his identity. We're starting here with a much older Murtagh who ostensibly knows what he is or who he is, but he still has a lot of shit to figure out. So not that this is a coming of age tale, but I think you said it in the last episode, what it is a character study. And so we're on this journey with him as he solidifies some of these aspects of his personality.
And I won't go long on this, but does he know who he is? Because his whole life has been defined by roles that no longer exist.
Yes.
So what is he supposed to do?
Yes. I think it goes back to that changing true name.
Yeah.
So many times since we've last seen him. It's he has no idea. He does in some ways because he does know his own true name, but his identity is in flux in such a way that I think it's changing as he changes his values, maybe.
Right. Or his true name is just, I am a person who does not know who I am. You know what I mean?
I guess, yes. I think that would make a lot of sense given what we know about the mechanics of true names.
Yeah.
But I think if he had that thought, we'd read it somewhere.
That's
and
fair.
He seems very self-assured. You know what I mean?
But he doesn't seem self-aware.
No, not at all. Which is interesting.
This
so
is
that's why I think he doesn't know that he doesn't know.
Yeah, well, agreed. We're saying the same. I think we're saying the same thing adjacent to each other. Yeah.
So Murtagh and Lirith, however, keep this banter going.
Oh, that's where we are.
Yes, we're back. We're at Lirith's house. It's happy hour. They keep their little banter going. Tense banter, terrible banter, with our coffee shop hipster busting out his sweet new accessories, his bird skull amulets, and Lirith trying to guard any intel on them very closely still. And just as things are getting to a stalemate and Murtagh is preparing a mental attack against Lirith, that asshole drops our guy through a trapdoor into a real nightmare situation. I hated this.
Yes, this was horrible.
Murtagh is pinned from all sides, his wards straining instantly, and a piercing whining sound fills his mind so loudly and powerfully that he can't think or use magic. He knows what he's in is basically a bear trap for magicians called a tingle box. This is something he's heard of before, which I was like, ooh, good world building.
Yeah.
But he's powerless to get himself out of it. And I was thinking, how do you think this thing is powered? Is there a gem somewhere nearby?
It's got to be it.
Yeah.
That's got to be it. Because I don't think we have any other.
Lirith definitely can't use magic. And
no. This has to be powered externally by something.
Yes, it has to be something a powerful magic user built that self-sustains its power. I just thought that idea was interesting because I don't think we see a lot of things that are
self-powered.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird because we have the amulet, but that's not doing anything. That's just warded.
Yes.
Right? It's not actively imposing things on you.
It truly is impossible to say because the amulet might have killed Saros.
Oh,
remember?
That's right.
So I don't know. It could be similar to that.
Yeah.
Murtagh's, though, precious moments of consciousness in this box are ticking by when at the last second a deafening crash frees him from his suspended animation. But it's a bit of a good news, bad news situation because Murtagh is out of the box, but Thorn is in the city, bloodied up, and one little inconvenience away from a full-blown panic attack here.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I would consider a roof caving in on a claustrophobic dragon at least a little inconvenience. So
Yes, a bit.
So it's panic attack time.
Yeah.
And ooh, buddy, does Thorn have a whopper here. Murtagh cannot get through to him. The mental contact is completely blocked. Yeah. As Thorn just visits chaos on this city block and the guards and magicians who come to subdue him. The whole thing is just a vicious cycle of more destruction, fueling more panic, fueling more destruction, escalating to the point that Thorn scoops Murtagh with his claw and flies from the city, raining fire on everything in range as he goes. He just
wild.
Lays waste here.
I was so shocked. I was like, oh no.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think, though, the worst part for me was that Murtagh thinks he sees Esvar among the first responders, and I do not know if I can handle our work best friend dying in a hail of fire. After all he's been through, I'm like, that's too much. I loved Esvar.
Oh no.
Justice for Esvar. And it takes a good minute for any of this to get better. They fly for hours with Murtagh still cut off from Thorn, trying desperately to send nothing but safety and peace through the bond. And I have to imagine this is quite a feat considering Murtagh himself is battling grief, guilt, rage, a litany of physical discomforts. Murtagh has been fucked up in the last day.
And he hasn't slept really in days.
It's such a shame. And I was curious when you read this really got me thinking. I think Murtagh has such an interesting psyche to delve into. That's why we keep
talking about it. Yeah,
running in loops about it. But when you read this, did you take it at face value that Murtagh is actually powerless to reach Thorn and doesn't have coping skills for a dragon in the throes of a panic attack, which is fair. That makes a lot of sense. I only ask because I think the first time through, that was my thought the first time through, but reading it closely now, I'm wondering if some of this is Murtagh being a bit of an unreliable narrator, lacking that self-awareness we were talking about.
Yeah.
And in reality, his own fear and rage and torment is feeding this whole situation with Thorn.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's what this is. I think Murtagh is unaware of himself completely, if that makes sense. It kind of goes back to what we were both saying before. There is a hypocrisy or dishonesty about him.
Yeah.
It's he has two sets of values and really can't be honest with himself all the time.
Yeah.
So there's something there. I think there's something there.
It just adds such a depth, I think, to reading. If this book is a character study, I think I like to dive as far into it as I can because it's I think there's so much going on with him because he doesn't have a firm grasp on who he is or how he presents or both.
Well, and we joked about the disguising himself thing. We joked about we didn't really talk about it, but I know when we were reading it, we talked about the page and him being a noble to that page. I do think that he doesn't see how he's really is. I think it actually would make more sense.
Yeah.
If he's completely he has a little delusional about how
I think so. Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, either way. The mood takes a turn for the even worse somehow when they finally land. Thorn's panic is just replaced by crushing guilt over what he's done and grief at facing down a future where his very consciousness seems to be pitted against him almost.
So sad.
Which only causes Murtagh to grieve for Thorn, picturing immediately his first thought is the innocent hatchling that he was before enduring all this trauma that's really broken him. It's really heavy stuff. I think Christopher Paolini handles it here with a deft hand, that transition from implacable rage and panic to just the crushing sense that your mind is your enemy almost.
Yes, totally.
Really sad. So I think it makes sense that Murtagh in turn here is plagued by his own PTSD as he goes off to hunt for their dinner, and he has this vivid flashback to their imprisonment and torture in Urobane, helplessly suffering their parallel horrors together.
Horrible.
Murtagh dwells specifically on how Thorn's first formative months in confinement gave rise to this claustrophobia, and he laments that some wounds will be with them forever, kind of something he was hinting at earlier. They're scarred in ways that can't be undone. And I think, like, you talked about this too while we were writing, but certain scenes exploring Thor's psyche leave me with the impression that Murtagh is almost like longing for a different dragon, but ultimately knows like this is his lot to get along with in life. I think we talked, I know, in the last episode about that sense of confinement, and I think it's something maybe we talked about a lot more while we were reading together. But yeah, I do get that sense that like Murtagh wishes
he had a different dragon.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we talk
really
a lot about their bro relationship, but they have like a friendlier relationship, but they also have like a more, at least to me, it seems a lot more distant relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time, but like Eragon and Saphira, by comparison now, really feel like two parts of one whole being.
Yeah.
But Murtagh is trying again to get along with this lot in life. He starts plotting their next steps, knowing that escalating this up to Niswada is no longer on the table now that they've laid waste to one of her cities. And he also dismisses the thought of taking this to Eragon, despite that being the clear, smart choice here, the one he encouraged Carabel to make.
Totally.
He even recognizes that a good chunk of his drive to get to the bottom of this wrongness is to prove that he doesn't need anyone's help to do the duty of a rider. And it's like, you are almost there, my guy. You know your instincts are coming from an unhealthy place, but you will be damned if you don't just follow where they lead. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude. And Thorn is on board with anything that gives him open skies and distance from cities. So, like, he can't be our draconic voice of reason here as he maybe had been a couple of times. Tried to be maybe
very
before.
Casually, like, maybe not good. Well, okay, whatever.
But this time he's just like, no cities, open skies, count me in. Which leaves Murtagh to catch Thorn up on all of his exploits in Gilead. And as he wraps up, they share a little bonding moment that despite their considerable collateral damage, it's better to stay winning than start losing.
Hell yeah.
That's a hot take, my guys.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
I love that these guys are like, we're winners, though.
I mean, we did really fuck that place up. And you're like, dude, no.
It's so funny.
Really shocking stuff. So the next morning, after Murtagh does his sword yoga, he does his best to buck up for Thorn so they can run through an immersion therapy protocol that they seem to have been working on this whole time. Murtagh tries to get Thorn to walk into a close-set stand of trees or like a little grove before the dragon panics.
Yeah.
And he does his best to coach Thorn through like a mindful self-talk approach, I think is kind of what he's getting at.
Yes.
And I so feel for Thorn here. He's just like, yeah, I could see how that would work if I could just tell my brain what to think. Easier said than done, Murtagh.
Yeah.
But it says a lot about Thorn that he like gathers every ounce of will he has to try this again and again.
Yeah.
And with another quick aside spared from Murtagh's fixation on cleanliness, they're ready to hit the skies to head for the meat and potatoes of the story, Dane. Murtagh's mind is racing through who might know about like what just happened in Gilead and be after them, to the point that the panic attack dragon here calls Murtagh twitchy because he's like, do you think Eragon's coming for us? Do you think Arya's coming for us?
Yeah.
Niswada sent people, right? And you're just like, dude,
you guys are both.
You have to calm down.
Yeah, they're both a mess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, aside from racing thoughts, Murtagh's other travel day pastime is reading his new dictionary. And I feel like Chris is really cranking up the dial on Coffee House hipster guy. Like, at least one of the allegedly secret killing words is in this thing. So the book is paying dividends.
Heck
but
yeah.
it also has Murtagh thinking up new mechanics for spellcrafting, which is, I just feel like his take on this is so fun.
It is. It's great.
Yeah, but his first attempt at this goes just lately off the rails when what is effectively like a giant magnifying glass spell that focuses sunlight just explodes his campsite. So we may have to workshop that a bit, bud.
Yeah, you're reminding me of Kevin, dude.
Yes.
Come on. Not you, Kevin.
No. What do you think Kevin's pal is? Kevin's hapless pal. What's Murtagh's Kevin name?
Kevin name? He was probably like Mark.
Mark.
Yeah, Matt.
Well, another pursuit he does share with his brother is the emo poetry he continues composing on the road. Never forget Eragon's rough but true.
No, hold on. I'm sorry. Murtagh's name is something cool like Lance or Chad.
Oh, yeah, Lance.
He's a Lance.
He's
for
a
sure.
Lance.
Sorry, it's important
No.
we nail that one.
I agree. I'm with you. Well, he does end up debuting, I think, a travel activity that is singular to him so far in the series.
Yes.
While they're on their flight up north. He gives Thorne a little campfire cabaret singing like song and dance routine before bedtime.
Could you imagine this?
No, I could not picture it at all, because the only like tie I have for this is like, you know, when you're a kid and you like have friends over, you're like with your siblings,
Yes.
or like at a
Yes.
family gathering and you're like, everyone come watch the dance we made up, and you like do a performance for your parents.
Yes.
I think that's how I picture this.
Yes.
This a real Lance move.
Classic Lance move.
Yes, they do take being on the lam as an opportunity for some educational tourism.
Yes.
So they make a pit stop at Ristvakbane to see the place where Gal sealed the fate of the riders by killing Vrail.
Like kicking him in the nuts.
Kicking him in the nuts, really important. Even Murtagh thinks about it again here. He's like
It's really important.
kicking him betwixt the legs.
I just imagine Gavin like, I got you.
I know. Well,
It's so
100%.
funny. It's so funny.
He's such a goober. It fits perfectly with the Gal we've crafted on
Yes,
this
it
show.
does.
It was weird, though. Murtagh had a huge emotional response in this place, which honestly, like, that did surprise me. I was not expecting it.
Yeah, it's an intense response, but it makes sense. This would be the beginning of his horrible life story and his father's evil.
Yeah.
And in many ways, this is where his tough life started to take shape. He then gets angry at like while he's there.
Yeah.
Of the writers of old for not killing Gal.
Yeah.
When they could before he even rose to power. And he even insinuates that he would rather be dead than alive due to Gal's victory.
Yes, he's like, my
Wow.
life has been a torment because of how this guy was able to take over, and it all happened here.
All Vrail had to do was wear a cup.
But that's not what he thinks. He's just mad that they didn't kill Gal.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a lot, though. Even Thorne pushes back on all this like self-pity that Murtagh's going through. He points out that he chose Murtagh, and like he gives his reasons for choosing Murtagh, which I thought was nice. But like,
this stuck out to me too.
Yeah.
Thorne says he chose Murtagh because they were similar.
yeah.
He was impatient, and Murtagh wasn't insane. And it's maybe not like the strongest case. Thorne seems less wise than Saphira to me. Is that a vibe you're also getting, James, or is Saphira just a better marketing person?
Saphira has a better pitch for sure, but I think this kind of gets at something like goofy I asked about the dragons, like the Eldenari now,
Yeah.
not the Eldenari, oh my god, so sorry, the dragon eggs now that need to hatch for riders. It's
Right.
like, is there going to be something up with the new crop of riders because those eggs are so desperate to hatch? That's kind of what
Oh my gosh.
I thought when I read this from Thorne. He was just like, well, I think we were similar, and you weren't crazy, so you're the only not insane person I'd ever met.
Yeah. Well, also, it kind of undoes his argument. He's like, don't cheer up, bud. Don't be sad.
Yeah.
I picked you because you were there.
It works, though. It is something I think we saw Saphira do at least once to Eragon in the run of the original series, which is like, you cannot wish for a different outcome, or like, you can't shit on yourself. I picked you. And like, do you not want to be bonded to me? Is that what you're asking for? And they're immediately like, no, I love you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. So Murtagh does end up copying a little souvenir from this pit stop. It turns out to be the same goblet that Eragon saw here and left behind during his post-war travels. And again, I think this is just showing, it's such a dumb, like, little thing, but just how different their reactions to this place are.
Yes.
Like, Eragon he's devastated being here. He does not like it. I mean,
He's
he
sad,
thinks about the history, but he has this like Zen acceptance of it, like picking up this cup and like philosophizing about it and putting it down, versus like Murtagh is just full uncontrolled rage here.
Yeah, and a little more materialistic.
Yes.
He wants to keep it for his hoard.
I mean, he's a rich boy, Dane.
Yes.
So from there, Murtagh and Thorne do a little flyover of Palancar Valley, taking in Therinsford, New Carvajal, the burned ruin of Eragon and Roran's childhood home, and Roran's manor house that's under construction. And he's just like longing for a different life again. And Murtagh can't help his intrusive thought that Selena picked Eragon to raise here because she saw some flaw in Murtagh. But Thorne nips that destructive train of thought right in the bud again, which is like,
good.
thank God for our boy. It's another one of those things like that resentment of Eragon for killing Selena that's like so tough to read, but makes so much sense. It feels so true to life for people who are in terrible situations like this.
Yes. It seems like this would be a thought you'd have.
Yes. I did think it was interesting that while Murtagh decides not to stop to meet Roran in this section, he thinks that they will need to have a, quote, reckoning at some point because their blood, he's like, you don't just ignore blood. And I was like, that is so unnecessarily intense. Like, you could just say, hey, it'd be cool to meet my cousin someday.
No, you don't get it.
These are Garrow's.
He's a lone wolf.
These are Garrow's blood.
This is Garrow blood.
I really think that's it. But as they press further north, they're in respectful awe of like the beautiful and deadly landscapes they're seeing. It's like stark but gorgeous. Yes. And they think about Gal coming up here when his first dragon was slain, and Murtagh doesn't seem to buy that Urgles alone killed 3 dragons and 2 riders on this mission.
Yeah, this too bothers me, like the same as Murtagh. I've always thought something's kind of up with that story, and my headcanon is that Gal was always kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That he and the riders got into a conflict and started to fight each other. And as they did, like, and their dragons are like duking it out, right as they were all engaged in combat, Urgles just struck in that moment. Okay. And like, I'm talking about like hundreds of them.
Okay.
And that's the one like setting that made sense to me always in my head. I never assumed like 4 Urgles killed the riders, right? So I always thought it was Gal's fault.
I mean, I did too, and I think I always pictured just a large enough force of Urgles to like make this true.
Yeah.
But I like that Murtagh's like, I've spent a lot of time with Gal, and it doesn't seem like he's that dumb or like something's up with that.
Not with his Pilates routine. This doesn't make any sense.
No, he's a strong boy. And you don't just pick up Pilates in old age, Dane. That's a lifelong habit.
That and meal prepping. Ben is a genius. By the way, if you are listening to this and you have no idea what we're talking about, we are referencing after show stuff we did with Galbatorix. I'm so sorry it keeps coming up in this episode.
Weird post-credits bonuses that we really waxed poetic about Gal's life in Urbane. But still flying up north, Murtagh is shocked to see his first Urgle village, actually, complete with Urgle women and Urgle children, which gets him reminiscing on a little piece of lore from all the way back in the first book when he and Eragon were running their horses to death through the Beors. Murtagh knew that insane Urgle chieftain. Remember, he recognized the banner right away?
Yes.
He was able to do that because he joined a defense expedition as a young man to confront that exact clan, and that chief nearly killed him in single combat.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy fight scene.
His childhood was intense, dude. And his take on the Urgles and the new Dragon Pact also, I think, belies a little bit, at least, of Murtagh's bias, because he still has some reservations about a dragon-bonded Urgle.
Yes.
We've talked about it a lot. We think it'd be dope. But it would be scary as fuck.
Well, that's why it'd be so dope.
Exactly. And Murtagh's further musing on the tenuous alliance with the Urgles leads him to think that while Eragon has like good gut instincts about allies, he's uneducated when it comes to war and politics. And it's like, I mean,
I have to say, I love Murtagh, but he's talking about my boy Eragon, and I gotta back my boy up here.
Okay.
All right. How the hell does Murtagh know this?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't the alliances Eragon made in the last war, the peace he ushered in after that war, and winning the war, be evidence that Eragon is actually better at those things than Murtagh?
It is, like, I feel like it's a classic, like, somebody takes an intensive course on a subject in school and comes out into the real world thinking they're an expert.
Yes.
When like people who maybe have been working in that field or like actually boots on the ground for decades have a lot more information about how these things work.
I once worked on a set. I won't say the set, but I once worked on a set where I was a PA and there's a bunch of other PAs. And all the PAs, we were all from film school. We all got the job because like we all knew each other.
Yeah.
And one of the guys did the film school thing where he was about to graduate, and he was like telling this grip like some of the things he was doing wrong. Oh. And like how he knew, and like maybe why don't you do this? Like asking him questions. Yeah. And like that's exactly kind of the vibe of this.
Yes, it's like well, somebody who's been in the industry for a long time. Well, maybe not like trained in the art of film as like, I'm about my fucking business. Well, I know my job. Yeah. And I do it day in and day out.
And the reason I bring it up is that guy didn't go to film school.
Yeah.
So it's like, come on, man.
Don't be that guy, Murtagh.
Please
don't do
be
it.
that guy. Come on, I love you. Stop it.
Yeah, it definitely is a bit of a tough sell as a take on the guy who made probably the best peacekeeping political move in history.
The Dragon Pact thing at the end, regardless of what you think about Eragon doing anything else, is the smartest thing he could have done.
Yeah.
I just... Wild.
Yeah. But the journey to root out Bashel wraps up with some mountain camping and bear encounters, followed by some questionably prophetic nightmares about fighting Urgles as they draw closer to the village of Charred Earth and Brimstone. Things are getting a little spooky up in here as they finally catch a telltale whiff of sulfur on the air. And buckle up, Dane. It is Creepy Cult Fest 2024 next week.
I'm scared.
I am scared. Yeah, the nightmares as they get closer really got me cued in that, like, ooh, some shit is up.
Razak about?
Razak? I would hate that.
I would love it.
Of course you would. But before we can party down, Razak or no, I do want to talk about some of the themes and writing devices I noticed in the second part of Murtagh.
It's time for analysis.
So to me, the wild side quest we just wrapped up, like, had its theme firmly seated, like starting in the first section of this book, actually. When Murtagh was bonding with Essie, he talked a lot about running from your problems.
Yes.
And although he is big picture on the run from the problem of finding his place in this world, this particular chain of escapades, I think, saw Murtagh doing just the opposite, which is confronting his past.
Yeah.
The section is riddled with instances where Murtagh has to grapple directly with the horrors of his past. From grave robbing to oath breaking, he's in constant conflict between the things he's done and the kind of person he thinks he is or wants to be. We keep coming back to that idea. And
yes.
Even Thorn gets his own huge dose of this as his past trauma boils over into the panic attacks they spend their journey trying to work through. But it's interesting to me that the end of this section, much like the end of the last, sees Murtagh and Thorn in flight once again, running even further from their real problems to try to solve the immediate problem they think is in front of them.
Yeah.
It puts me in the mindset that even though we just saw Murtagh and Thorn confronting their past at every like small turn in this section on this like little adventure, they haven't necessarily arrived at any sort of resolution to those confrontations because they're still making the same mistakes.
They're still going.
Yes, but it isn't only in their actions throughout this stretch that our sad boys face down the things that haunt them. It's in their minds, obviously. I think Christopher Paolini is making really smart and abundant use of a literary device here to drive this theme home, and it's the flashbacks we see Murtagh return to almost constantly in this section. I'm not going to belabor the way that flashbacks reinforce the idea of confronting your past. And I think it actually serves another purpose in this book that I do want to talk about.
Okay.
It's a really good way, I think, to quickly flesh out pieces of Murtagh's character that we did not get to explore with him, spending so much time off screen in the previous books. And I think we keep talking about it working really well to add depth to the world as he fleshes out things that are vastly different from Eragon's experiences and worldview. We keep talking about all the fun things he knows or does, ticks he has as a noble. And I think that's really a good side purpose other than like being theme appropriate to having all these flashbacks. And before I wrap up, I do want to circle back on a broader writing difference, I think, between this book and the OG Inheritance cycle, the OGIC, if you will.
Oh, the OGIC. I love it.
I think we joked a lot about the clear and present side quest vibes this section has.
Yes.
And I think that tracks when we're with a more mature main character who isn't under the wing of any kind of guide. We talked about it in the last section. So
they're loose.
Yes. So I think here around the halfway mark in this book, all the uncertainty over the right course of action is really making the story feel almost like a collection of different little vignettes to me. Like in Carabelle's first rundown of her plan for Murtagh to find Silna, I remember just like straight up thinking, I'm sorry, we're going to be doing what with a giant fish? Like,
come again?
Yes, there was a sense for me that like as fun as these escapades are to read, and as much as they gave us like all these fun flashes of world building and like character development, I kept feeling a little incredulous that Murtagh was really about to do all of this stuff. I was like, he's not going to go get a job.
What?
That's insane. And he does just go get a job.
Yeah.
It's something I've been thinking a lot about because I think the mild chaos of it all caused this section to drag a little bit pace-wise for me. I think if I'm reading a book of short stories, I might not at all that like we have these tenuously linked vignettes.
Yeah.
But in a novel, I'm a reader that wants like a clear and justifiable reason for each phase of the adventure that I'm on. Even if it's a little bit of a stretch or like a character just making a straight up bad choice, I can buy in pretty quickly if the reason is there.
Yes.
Like I've said a couple of times, it makes sense to me. It's so consistent with Murtagh's character that he doesn't make good choices, but like the reasoning isn't quite strong enough, I think.
I
For
totally
me.
agree. Yeah.
But Murtagh taking on this elaborate task with 3 distinct phases feels more like scenes that might pop up in a book of short stories rather than a way to get a simple piece of information at the end of the day.
Totally.
So I think that really plays on this idea that like you said, he's out here loose. Like,
Yeah, he's just loose.
he's just like trying to muddle through the best he can. And I think it's really giving rise to all these like, I often too am just out here loose.
Yeah, just like,
My
what?
life would probably look much like this collection of vignettes if told as a story. But I know not everybody happens to think that deeply about why a man simply must kill a giant fish, Dane. But I have this weird feeling that you've pondered to that depth about at least one thing in this section. Do you have a bit of a deep dive?
Have I pondered? Let's get to a deep dive. This was maybe a bit light, but I think that we've been given a lot of fascinating information about the world. And while there aren't really enough details yet to draw from conclusions, I do want to speculate on a few things.
Okay.
I love speculating.
Yeah.
For example, we have elves, dwarves, and werecats living amongst humans.
Yes.
How will that change the empire?
Yeah.
My mind goes first to the elves, and I think we will see an explosion of medical advances thanks to those pointy-eared hippies. Their knowledge, especially in childbirth, is astounding. It could revolutionize human healthcare in the empire.
Yeah.
Their mastery of their bodies, both physically and magically, is also likely to lead to other medical breakthroughs. Plus, their expertise in the natural world could boost agricultural yields and promote restorative farming practices, keeping topsoil fresh and prioritizing land health.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What more could you want?
I can't-
Restorative farming practices.
I mean,
Sign
Jacqui,
me up.
Can you imagine if some smart farmers really took the time to work with the elves to learn some of the knowledge around plants and animals?
I mean, if only the elves ate meat, we'd have so much grass-fed, free-range beef, Dave.
Exactly. I mean, all of this alone would be huge. Just an increase in food and better medical knowledge could transform the empire quickly.
Yes.
At the very least, for the average citizen, which, you know, this is like honestly the I'm going rogue here from my notes, but this is kind of how, like, in the Industrial Revolution and when you get large amounts of people freeing up time because they're all eating and, you know, getting all that stuff in their house and they're healthy.
They're not solely focused on, like...
and they're living longer and they're healthier and they're not so worried about, you know, the weather, because if we don't have food from over here because there was a famine or like a you know, there was a blight here, we'll
like
get it
killing
from
themselves for food and then like
that's
dying
how you,
from the common cold. It's like if we could free up some of that time.
some of those people are going to be brilliant.
Yes.
So like you kind of change the world that way.
Yeah.
Then I started thinking about our dwarven friends and I got even more excited.
Of course you did.
Because they're dwarves.
Yes.
The dwarves' entry to the merchant game would be equally transformative, I think, if not more so.
Yes.
Their impact on engineering and the metal industries could spark immediate advances, leading to exciting new technologies that improve daily life for everyone.
Yes.
I know it sounds crazy, but I like immediately started thinking about like magical trains, elevators,
Oh, wow.
and even like large buildings like skyscraper kind of like.
Damn.
I don't think that's like too far away now.
More Trondheims.
Yes, more Trondheims. Lastly, with the dwarves, elves, and werecats sharing their vast knowledge of world history, geography, and religion, we're on the brink of an intellectual renaissance.
Yes, they're the only people who actually know world history.
Exactly.
So that'd be nice.
So
to
crazy.
proliferate, yeah.
And if you're a Joe type, this is the time to be alive.
Yes.
And with Duvringagada gathering magic from every human in the Empire, we're witnessing the start of a major transformation. Over the
Yes.
next decade, the Empire could become unrecognizable compared to the Alagazi we knew in the first series. It's kind of exciting, actually.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jax? I'm making some jumps, but I think that this is all kind of new territory. I mean, the elves even had running water. Imagine running water in Dwarven constructed mega buildings. It could be like more modern, right?
It is really interesting, and like knowing like metagaming a little bit, like knowing that Christopher Paolini does like to write sci-fi or like kind of futuristic stuff, it would be interesting to see some like technological almost type advances based on magic that could take place in this world. That is a fun thought. I
pretty
can
cool.
confess I thought about this not at all, but now I'm like, oh shit, I want to go there.
Well,
I want to know.
It leads to something that you did bring up, that bully of a noble Lyrith.
Yes.
And some of what he was saying to Murtagh in this section.
Okay.
I think there are some interesting implications about the political landscape as it stands right now, because it won't surprise you to know I don't think Lyrith is entirely wrong here.
No, Dane.
If you look at the nations on a power and political level, the elves are worrying.
Yes.
You're basically just assuming you have goodwill from a country of people who've shown an almost alien-like mentality to humans. Remember how Roran thought about them?
Yes.
It would be scary at the least, but with a rider heading them, and your rider far away, and I put your rider in heavy quotes.
Yeah.
I would be spooked as a neighbor. I mean, you wouldn't even really feel like you could mount a counter offense if they attacked you because their forest is not only well defended, it's unexplored.
Yes.
Taking soldiers in there would be crazy. Also, I mean, most of the humans also don't have any relationships with elves or have even seen one until like the last year. Talk about like the othering of another race.
Ugh,
yeah. This would be super tense, I think. Also, just on a side note, think of how the elves must view human culture.
Yeah.
I mean, the humans aren't as tuned into nature as the elves and are not as like harmonious. It isn't crazy to predict the elves might have some strong opinions about how the humans are doing things now or in the near future. Maybe
Strong
if they
opinions from the race that, gave rise to the woman who yelled at a priest in his own temple about atheism.
Exactly.
That seems so weird.
That's their best diplomat, remember? So this guy's a total asshole, this Lyrith guy, but he is dialed into at least, I think, what the most hawkish in the Empire might be thinking. From a purely like militarily like might standpoint, it's very worrying.
Yes, I think when taken in concert with like the brink of kind of renaissance or revolution that we're on as far as like the culture goes, it makes a lot of sense. Just think about any kind of real political and social upheaval. You're going to have a really strong faction of like people who are comfortable in the old world who do not want to give that shit up.
Yeah, and I'm not even mentioning like the old elven lands that were taken when Gal took over the Empire.
Yeah.
Are the elves going to want those lands back? Will the humans be able to say no? If they say no, what's the outcome of that? Also, what would your regular Empire merchant class votes think about truly superior like material goods being produced by dwarves and elves?
Yeah, not even just the nobility, the upper middle class too.
Exactly. So this isn't even taking into account market disruption, which for the large whole would be good, but for those currently enjoying the way that things are, they would just be horrible.
Yeah.
And I could see a lot of support for this line of thinking. I mean, just look at like immigration conversations in our own world.
Dude.
I think it makes sense that this is a tense moment in Algasia, and there is people who don't like it, who are already thinking ahead.
Yes.
And going, no, not for me. I don't like this. Right? I want things to go back to the way they were.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
They're definitely be haters.
Actually, your research referred to the original text how you pronounce it.
What are the haters saying?
There is an index in the back, right?
This is a really derivative.
The haters are back this week, and it's a mixed bag online.
Okay.
All right. The book is newer, so there's less hate.
Good.
But the theme seems to be Muckmaw. Our haters are mad for two reasons.
Not my goofy big fish.
Not your goofy big fish, indeed. First, they can't believe Murtagh struggles with a fish after killing Oramus and Glader, defeating Eragon several times, killing Nesawada, surrounded by her army and Nighthawks, and helping defeat Gabatorix. They think the fish should have been an easier target.
Sus.
Yeah. Second, the more complicated issue is the wards and the magic in this section. So
Okay.
first, let's dive into the easier problem. Why did Murtagh struggle with a fish?
Hey, Dane, it was really big.
It was a big fish.
As big as a house.
You know what? You could do the haters. That's it. You heard it here first, folks. It was a big fish. No, we do know a lot about Murtagh and his skill level.
Yes.
He wasn't trained by riders or Gabatorix. He was trained in the sword, Gilvan Eldenari, and protection from Gal, and set out into the world. Now, Murtagh has no Eldenari.
Yep.
He has no protection from Gal, and no real control over magic except for the name of names.
Yes.
So he's basically just a human with a strength upgrade,
Okay.
fighting a giant shade-enhanced fish monster. He's also fighting in water against a foe he's never been like trained to fight.
Yeah.
And how do you sword fight a giant fish? Also the magic doesn't work. So it's essentially a human versus a magically protected killer whale. Now consider that. I think he does pretty well. If you like take that, you're like, okay.
If you picture any one of us or yourselves fighting a killer whale, how do you think that would go?
How do you think it would, like, I'll give you a sword, and then you, like, with just a regular, we won't even magically enhance it.
Even if you're really fit.
Yeah.
I think it would be hard.
Yeah, I just don't know. I'll concede that this isn't the coolest of foes. I pictured a giant salmon the whole time while reading.
No.
So maybe that's the real issue some people are having. It's not flashy. It's a dirty pond fight with a fish. But it does make sense. It's tough.
Hey, Dane.
Yeah.
He's a sturgeon, not a salmon. Put some respect on Muckmaw's name.
I don't know. I just pictured like you know that like fish that's on the boards that used to sing to you as kids. Oh, I just like what is that? A bass?
Billy the big mouth bass.
Yeah, I pictured a giant bass.
Oh, that track.
Which is not a sturgeon at all. You should look them up. They're crazy.
Don't look up a sturgeon. They're really ugly.
Yeah. Well, with that first bit of hate, squash.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that is kind of a goofy argument.
If you think Murtagh did wrong, please send me a video of a human with a sword killing a killer whale. I don't want that video.
Don't send it to me.
Don't send it to me. Actually, I don't want that either. But that would be the proof, I guess. Anyway, with that first bit, I think squash. Let's move on to the wards and magic. Haters think this Durza ward either breaks the magic system or doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But I think it's a misreading of the section.
Okay.
My understanding is that Muckmaw has a ward that recasts itself if it's removed.
Yes.
How would that work? Why didn't Gal or the elves think to do this? The writers of the ancient old world.
Yeah.
These are all valid questions, but I think it works as stated. If the ward is deleted, new wards are created.
Yes.
This adds danger to the world that isn't like helped by knowing the name of names.
Yeah.
And I admit it's a strange that like none of the other Eldenari, the writers of old, the ancient magical race of elves knew about this. I understand the haters not liking it.
Yeah.
But this is just a creative choice they don't agree with.
Yeah.
This doesn't break the magic system and it does make sense. The haters just don't like it. Young Paolini put old Paolini in kind of a tough spot with the name of names.
Yeah.
Without this ward, the fight would have been over in 2 seconds. And this is a reworking and rebalancing of the system. If we love this world and want more adventures, we need someone reworking or the solutions to every problem in the future of these stories is going to be the name of name.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trump card. I think he said in an interview somewhere that is what he was getting at here. And I think, you know, if you think about the magic system and like the fact that this whole spell is just drawing endless energy from every single fish in the lake, basically, like what couldn't it do? You know?
Yeah.
Is kind of the idea. If you like...
It makes sense.
Yes. If you overlook like the logic loop that we're kind of in, I think you like there's no mechanical reason this shouldn't work.
No, it's
just like, yeah. It's
and
just
I don't
like
think
a
the
logic
haters...
loop.
Yeah, because like, what I did see online is like any argument about this kind of like, you know, there are some fans who are very defensive of Paolini, which, you know, good for them.
Yeah.
But...
we're with you guys.
Yeah, we're with you guys. These conversations don't go very long because those haters don't really have a lot of like facts. Because this is not a logical thing they don't like. They just don't like the vibes, which is fine.
Yeah.
And at least like the haters make sense this week, I think. Because if you didn't like the giant fish or the retconning of power, I get that. But the hate framed as it doesn't make sense or breaks or changes the magic system is where I think the haters are wrong.
Yeah, trying to go too far to say, like, this is ruining everything about, like, the books as written before. It's like, you could calm down. Or trying to, like, go through mathematical reasons why you can't have, like...
How would we restart if it was already gone? I think I just... It's a vibes thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay, haters. It's all right. And as readers, it's okay to like everything in a book and then go, you know, I didn't like that part. Yeah. It's like totally fine. What has happened? What has happened to us as people?
You can just like things. It's totally fine.
You can just like things even if you're like, oh, this isn't a perfect thing. Yeah. You can still just like a thing. You know?
I think so. And I think like knowing that you need to make some sort of shift so that your entire series moving forward is not boring is probably a good move. And that said, I think my biggest piece of defense here, like the biggest thing that had me not really fixating on this is like there's so much about shade magic specifically that is completely unknown to us in this universe. I think even if, and I don't think he has to, I think this can work just as stated, like you said, like you kind of ignore the Lupin logic and just like agree that it feeds off all the energy that's there and it can be it can be endless. I think even if Christopher Paolini did want to go back at some point in some of these future books, delve more into shade magic, delve more into the whole mysterious branch of magic we don't know about that powers these amulets. Like there are a lot of options, I think, in this world, a lot of mysteries basically still abounding that could solve this. So for me as a reader, when I'm in, especially an early book in a series, I know we used to talk about this all the time in book club, but every time like people be like, I didn't really get it, or like that didn't make sense, that seemed dumb. I was like, I don't know, we got 14 books left in in the Wheel of Time, it might all come together.
It might come together.
And often it did. So
Yeah.
it's like, that's usually my take on stuff like this.
Also, there's a laziness here. Like, if you're gonna be a hater, like, come up with a better way to dislike something. Because, like, I do think I didn't see anybody saying this, but just off the dome, like, the Sturgis that gets this big and has been around for 60 years, wouldn't he overeat the lake?
He'd overfish the lake.
Yeah, wouldn't he overfish the lake and then all of a sudden he would die of starvation?
I mean, as humans, we're really having this problem
Yes, that's
with
what I mean.
overfishing.
Like, let's make some real criticism of the ecological system of the lake. Yeah.
Such a good point.
Yes.
The climate implications alone of having this much of an apex predator in an unfamiliar
Sounds fishy,
habitat.
doesn't it, Paolini? No, I'm just kidding. I just do. I'm with you on everything. Haters, I'm glad that we've seen each other today.
Nice try.
Nice try. And I think that's it. You ready to move? Can we go out? This was a longer one.
I know. We had fair warning. This was a chunky boy. This section was, I don't know, page count wise, a third of this book.
And we couldn't figure out, like, we're going to break the next two up in 2 episodes, and we couldn't figure out how to do it here.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to, like...
It all feels like such a cohesive, like, side quest. We loved it so much as its own, like, little episodic adventure, like its own little D&D game,
yes,
kind of.
Totally
that
D&D
we wanted
game.
to keep it all together. So
all right.
Buckle up next time.
Yeah. And thank you for listening. Please make sure to rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts, support on Patreon, and check out our social media at Is This Just Fantasy Pod on TikTok or at Just Fantasy Pod on Instagram. If you have any questions or just want to write to us about the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. And you can email us at isthisjustfantasypod@gmail.com. We love your emails. Thank you so much.
Yes, every email is kinder than the last. We love you guys. Obviously, we talk forever.
Yeah.
We love that you guys also write us long emails that we can like dig into
It's
to
fantastic.
respond back. It's the best. But if you want to keep pace and read along with us, on the next episode, we will be covering Part 3, Chapter 1, The Village, through Part 3, Chapter 12, The Bad Sleep. Well, it is the first half of Part 3 of this book. We are getting into Cult Town, Dane.
Cult Town.
We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. Come on and listen to us next time. Find out what our deep dive will be. Thanks for catching our show.